When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Heart, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common: the crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw thorium, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Arvanauts. Why is suddenly my Stream Deck decided to not work anymore? Suddenly it has completely gone dark. Okay, well that's, fortunately for all of us, I'm a super pro, super professional, and of course, in no way am I being disrupted at all by the fact that my Stream Deck has elected to stop working at just this very moment. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome, Arvanauts, to a Friday stream. It is September 25th, 2020. It is 10 minutes to 10, and I want to welcome everyone to day 51 of this Esper Genesis, which is Altai Media Presents is the adventure today, and it is day 51 of Esper Genesis, sponsored as always by Alligator Alley Entertainment. I hope everyone is having a good Friday, and that you are looking forward to what I hope will be an enjoyable experience going forward. Yeah, my Stream Deck is completely frozen, so I need to cancel you now. I need you to be quit. Yes, please quit Stream Deck. Yes, no, I want to quit Stream Deck. Yes, because Stream Deck has already quit me. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm in the middle of doing that while I'm also trying to talk to all of you. If you have not already done so, just a couple of quick reminders about ways to support us here on the stream before we get into this awesome adventure tonight. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to follow us here on the channel. That is always appreciated. Please make sure to check out our YouTube channel, which has all past broadcasts of the stream. That is !arvtube for that. !arvcord is the Discord channel where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. That's always much appreciated. Okay, there we go. Now that's working. That's muted. That's unmuted. Okay, it's back. I don't know what was happening, but it's working. Exclamation point Arvcord is the Discord. Exclamation point Arv tweets for my Twitter, where you can get all sorts of details about what's going on in my personal life. No, mostly what's going on in my streaming life, my gaming life, my teaching life, my writing life, of course, a little bit of the music, and a little bit of politics and family here and there as well. So, and of course, I always post there when I'm going to be going live over here. And you can find us all at arvineleron.com, which is the website for this channel. On the financial side, exclamation point Arv Shop will get you over to the merchandise area where you can pick up stuff relating to the Infinity and Beyond crew, playing Curse of Strahd, where you can get material relating to the Adventures of Middle-earth crew, playing Erebor Adventures, and soon we hope to have Esper Genesis stuff up there as well. So that is always a thing which can help us. Another thing which helps us is by checking out our Patreon, exclamation point Arvtreon. You see right down there, 22 patrons, $2.25 per month. Really the financial backbone of the channel, and it really does make a difference in terms of what we can put back into the channel, and also allows you to get some cool stuff like a copy of one of my band's albums, or professional writing critique, or an epic character background, or an epic poem written about you, etc. So there's lots of cool stuff that you can get with that. So any of that would be appreciated if you can support us there. And last but certainly not least on that score, we have that sub button, of course, which allows you to sub to the channel and get those awesome sub badges and custom emotes you saw Mrs. Dunsel using just now and all that kind of stuff. So all of that is really appreciated. You can also get inspirations to help the players, and it is possible the players today may need a little bit of inspiration. We will see how that goes, but there's also that. So all of that really makes a difference, and we would appreciate it very much if you would be able to jump on board and support us by subbing to the channel as well. Last, the publishing stuff, exclamation point Icarus for details about my Icarus and Jelinek graphic novels. Very excited about those coming out from Athos Arts, and I cannot wait until more details about that comes out. That is going to be released in retail on November 10th, and we are very excited about the response that it's been getting out there in the world, and about we're starting to get the blurbs in and starting to get some reviews looked at and all that kind of stuff. So all of that really helps, and so if you haven't done so already, please consider checking those out. I'm very proud of that story, and the art is amazing, and Athos did a great job. Exclamation point library is Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, my 5e adventure source book from this very company which also produced this game, Esper Genesis, Alligator Alley Entertainment. They did an amazing job. Hardcover for that is coming very, very soon. The print editions are coming soon, I should say, and they're going to be, I can't wait to hold the print edition. It's going to be so exciting. In the meantime, you can find that at drivethrurpg.com in digital form, where it is a silver seller, and I'm very proud of that work as well. And then, of course, you've got exclamation point Greyshade KS for more details about my Greyshade Kickstarter coming February 2nd of next year. Very excited for the Greyshade stuff, which is going to be super cool, and I can't wait to share that all of you with all of you when we get a little bit closer to it. And of course, most importantly, as I've been talking about now for several months, exclamation point BLM, Black Lives Matter, enormously important that everyone follow up on this, because we need to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to support Black Lives Matter. And I actually was driving along today, driving my daughter to the orthodontist, and I actually passed this older white woman, probably I would guess like grandmother age. She looked like she was in her 70s, standing on a corner all by herself holding a Black Lives Matter sign. And so I, obviously we honked and, waved and gave her the thumbs up, and she waved back and all that, but no one was around her. No one else was there. It was just her. And I thought that was cool. And I really hope, I live in New York City, and yes, that's a more liberal area, but it's not wholly that way. And it was nice to see an example of someone, just an individual anecdote, but hopefully there are millions such anecdotes spreading across the country and indeed across the world. Hopefully we can be one of the people producing stories like that ourselves. So exclamation BLM to link up to various resources and information that you can gather. All of that is available to you. So thank you so much if you've done that, and if you haven't, consider doing so. So that's what's going on with that. Schedule-wise, tonight we have got Esper Genesis going on. Tomorrow we have D&D with Infinity and Beyond Curse of Strahd going on, which is going to be super exciting. On Sunday, that campaign, by the way, drawing towards its conclusion. On Sunday, we have got the return of the Speculate Twitch joint event of Blades in the Dark. That's going to be really cool with Brandon O'Brien as your GM. That's coming on Saturday evening. And then on Monday evening, we have Emberwind, so we've got that going on. And then Tuesday, we have the Patreon-fueled Chat Chosen Game of the Month, which is going to be Spiritfarer, which I'm excited about because I've heard really good things about that. And then in the afternoon, we've got what may be the last session of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Blood and Wine over on GOG. So we've got a lot of days in a row now. What are we talking? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days, right? I guess, of stream content, good stream content for you. And that will, after that Tuesday, wrap up our September and go into what promises to be a very active and, prodigiously impressive October in a lot of ways. So I'm looking forward to that as we go forward. So having said all of that, I am now going to unmute myself so the folks know that we are ready to go. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to there to reveal the almost, not quite, but almost full crew. We are missing one of our number, and that is because at the moment, just finishing up, actually, I believe, Cat Rambo is finishing up a panel or a podcast of some kind, and will be over here shortly to tell us all about it. I'm sure it was great and didn't have any issues at all. But no, I'm looking forward to having Cat with us, and then we will have the full crew. Although one of the full crew will be Sans video today. We will have him not more than in spirit. We will have his voice, his brain, as I think we were convinced that this is indeed Johnny Pittman. We think so. We're either that or it's an extremely impressive AI version of Johnny. But either way, I think,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, if it is an impressive AI version, then we got the same thing basically that we needed. So, like that's fine either way. Johnny,
actually winter.
Exactly. The long winter has invaded our own Zoom call. Johnny, how you doing? How's life in the universe? And who are you playing today?
I'm alive. I'm here. I'm on the phone call. I'm not quite sure I am not an AI. I'll be completely honest with you guys. Although I like the idea of it being Tesla versus Google because Tesla seems to be doing better in the technology than Google. But anyways, I'm here. And I'll be playing Aramis the Ashenforge Melder. Sorry, I'm having to wear a mask as I'm doing this, so I just if I sound a little muffled, that's what's going on.
That's what an AI would say. You realize? I'm just letting you know that that's.
Yeah, I haven't quite got the algorithm for the voice just correctly, so I'm not getting the nuances.
I am wearing a mask, human.
Just like you humans, all of us humans in masks.
All humans wear masks. Oh man. The robot invasion is going to be a very different experience this time around. But it's always a pleasure to have Johnny with us, even in disembodied voice form. Yes, we will introduce Kat when Kat arrives. But in the meantime, we will move right along to someone who is here in person, in the flesh, with both voice and visuals. You are just all the overwhelming quality of Carlos Hernandez in one window. Carlos, good to see you. How are you doing, my friend? How's life, the universe, and everything? And who are you playing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm a professor, and professing is picking up plenty of speed. So I've got lots of projects, lots of pots on burners and things like that. So we're in the thick of it. In every weekend in October, I'm going to be at like a different online con, and so I'm preparing for all of those. And so it's just we're picking up speed. But I'm looking forward to tonight. Tonight I'm playing Ludicrous Sleepwell, a Valna who basically is trying to simultaneously rescue a rock star, find his dad, and basically tell his sister that he's not a little kid anymore.
Yes, and all that. Yeah, exactly. I think you've just summarized what the Gilmore Girls always really wanted to be, as it conceptually. You just provided this is what it would have been if it was a great show. But anyway, I am very excited.
There can be some flaming some people really love Gilmore. I mean, if we got Big Gilmore after us now after this, I'm gonna be frightened.
Oh man, I'm just basically trying to anything for clickbait. You know the drill. But
okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I have to defend Gilmore Girls. It is one of the best written shows.
Here we go.
It is one of the best written shows and best performed
I did that on purpose because
I will fight you guys to the death.
I will fight you to the beaches. I will fight you to the.
Here we go. I knew it.
Professor denies in all caps the Gilmore Girls quality promoted YouTube video. Yeah. We got our first. I actually have to say, you'll all find this funny. We got our first downvote on an Esper Genesis video that I've seen from our Day 50 show, because we started our Day 50 show by talking about the Ginsburg thing, and someone left a comment that I'm not going to repeat because I removed it, and because it was inappropriate, and I was just kind of like, okay, well, get used to it. I'm not going to shut up about that stuff. So, but it was very interesting. I'm like, the minute you're just like, listen, you just stick to space, all right? You just tell stories. You get your politics out of my stories, because politics have no business in storytelling. There's no science fiction that has any politics as part of it. 90% of it actually at all. So yeah. Anyway. But always a pleasure to have Carlos with us. Also, always a pleasure to have Zach with us, who's got an enormous red dragon behind him today, and I don't know, like, is this like aspirational, like you want to be riding the Tron version of these dragons, because it looks like dragons against the city. Like, what's the drill with this background? Like,
this is related to my well, it's kind of sci-fi element related, because it's actually artwork inspired by Cyberpunk, which is that game that's coming out later this year, which I'm on a huge I'm obsessing over recently. I go through different phases of shows that I like watching, and then I'm done with it, and then I move to the next thing. So right now I'm in my getting ready for Cyberpunk phase, and then by the time it comes out, I'll be like, wait, it's out, because I'll be focusing on something else.
I'm looking at something else, which reminds me, have you had your first Aliens campaign thing yet?
We are having our session 0 soon, and then we are set for our first episode. I believe she said when it was, but it's in the beginning of October, basically.
Okay, beginning of
so
October.
Very soon. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm really ready to get maimed and eaten by some xenomorphs.
I mean, really, it's going to make, this campaign is going to seem like a walk in a park, just romper room in comparison, but it's going to be good stuff.
Anyway, I'm Zach. I'm doing good at the moment, ready to get into space and to actually we're not falling. We're in an elevator. Theoretically,
I was going to say, checks notes. Really? I don't remember the.
Yeah, I had this the idea in my head still of jumping off the railing and doing a big,
which the guy who helped you did do. So
yeah, he did.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm playing Cosmoritis, the Bellare hunter / specialist, who really all those classes mean is that he has a sniper and is dexterous and used to be a mercenary and can emit space beams from his suit and things. That's all you need to know.
It gets more and more instrumental, like just kind of like, and can destroy with thoughts things and stuff. It's going to be great tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Zach, for being here, and I am excited to get into the recap. I just want to quickly say thank you to Lone Wolf for gifting a tier 1 sub to Ibrahim C2000. So thank you very much, Lone Wolf. I appreciate it. It is I appreciate that very much. So welcome, and Ibrahim, welcome welcome here. And I think you've been gifted it once before, because you're actually listed as a 2-month sub. So I think that means you had one other that was gifted to you. But thank you.
He's one of my stream regulars. I'm happy to see him here.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm very excited to have a new sub in here. So thank you very much, Lone Wolf. I appreciate that. All right. Well, let us get into it, folks, because a lot went down in our last session, I think it's fair to say, and a lot of that is related to decisions that were made by this crew. So let me fire up a little bit of music here. Let's get some Outpost 31. Give me some Outpost 31 here. Yeah, good.
It's and like how about you're putting together a menu.
Some Forbidden Galaxy. Little touch of that. There we go. I love it. Good. Okay. In our last session, the crew found themselves suddenly on the run for a crime which, as I said in my tweet, they just didn't commit. It is the crime of the kidnapping of Bliss Larkham and the killing of her former manager, Merrick, neither of which the party was responsible for. In fact, if you're getting a little bit of whiplash about this story because you've been out for a couple of sessions, you're like, wait, I thought they were the heroes of Bastion because they saved Bliss Larkham. You're right, they did. And then things kind of went south from there, because apparently the shadowy forces which are continuing to gather strength to be be arrayed against this crew, which continues to interfere with its rightfully determined plans to do terrible things to people. The party continues to figure out a way to undercut this, and so as a consequence, the party has found itself running afoul of the Shadow Technocracy and of the Zephyr Corporation, or at least the rogue branch of the Zephyr Corporation, which is responsible for putting together this massive nanovirus, this terrible cyber virus called the Long Winter, which, if it were somehow to spread throughout the Silrain Arc, could literally destroy much of the galaxy because of its power and its reach. And so the party basically has that problem on its hands, and as Sleepwell just made reference to, as Carlos made reference to about Sleepwell, Sleepwell has his own problems to deal with, including both what has happened to his father, who's been changed in this strange way into some strange cybernetic cyborg type of being, and also the problem of his sister, who just showed up a couple of sessions ago to reveal that she has been looking for Sleepwell and now has been hoping that she could get his help and enlist his aid, which probably makes Sleepwell feel good, but not so much that he doesn't forget how angry he still is at his sister and the rest of his family. But he has had to put that aside for the moment because the party has got other problems. While the party was trying to get some rest and R&R, a security team came knocking on the door where they'd been staying of the apartment given to them by Bliss Larkham because of all the work they had done a little while ago. And what they ended discovering was that there was essentially a warrant out, or the equivalent of warrant out for their arrest under suspicion of having, again, kidnapped Bliss Larkham and killed her manager. Fortunately, though, they happened to find an old guard type security chief, a guy named Alden Heil, a cash security captain, who warned them of this plot, told them that he didn't believe that the heroes of the Bastion would 2 days later turn around and kidnap and kill the same people that they had just respectively saved and brought to justice. Didn't seem to make much sense that they would do that 2 days later, but that even he could not explain the movement of this investigation, that it seemed to be run at a higher level, sort of above his pay grade, and that it might even have been run by something that was not even wholly human, which meant the rest of the party began to look at each other because they know about something that is maybe not wholly human that is pursuing them. Kaz knows this intimately well because half of it technically is residing in his suit as we now speak, and has been warning him of the dangers of what the other psychotic, psychopathic, sociopathic, every other kind of idiopathic, every other kind of pathic you could possibly get, homeopathic, every other kind of, it's a very distilled essence. That's how you know.
Exactly. A little bit every day.
Yeah, a little bit of, exactly. Of that essence can be found in Kaz's suit. And so the party realized that they didn't have a lot of options except to do what they ultimately did, which was to send some of Sleepwell's constructs, which look vaguely like, look somewhat like them, they do, and to send them off with the security guards and Alden while they made their way to trying to find out what was going on. And they have only one lead. The lead that they have is the fact that they were told by Alden Heidel that there was one person who might be able to give them a bit of assistance, who had made it clear that he would be waiting to meet with them. This person is called Fel Omric. He is a Kesh smuggler, and the reason that Alden knows him is because this is Alden's brother. Alden does not trust him. It was very clear to the party that he was not a big fan of having to even tell them about him, but he has to admit that Fel Omric knows a lot about what happens on the Bastion, the space station where the party currently is, and he knows how to get things done. And they need information, and only that information is going to make it possible for them to clear their name, to stay clear of the authorities, and hopefully to get an even further lead on what they need to with not just their individual problems, but the larger issue of the Long Winter and figuring out how to strike a blow against the Shadow Technocracy and this rogue branch of the Zephyr Corps. So the party made its way to the elevator down to an area known to the locals as Starlight Cross, but known to the party as Lower Port 9, the 9th sector on the lower level of the port side of the Bastion, with streets that are tight and narrow. I think I had a picture which I put up here like that. Streets which are tight and narrow, and this tower, which is kind of crazy and all sort of combined and mixed. It is the seedy side of the Bastion, basically. There is a thriving black market down here. There's also a thriving assassination circle down here, and a lot of other bad things down here that could cause problems for the party that they have been told about.
Assassination circle.
Yes, Yes.
Just a bunch of people gathered
just
in a circle.
They're
that
just assassinating each other. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
One after another.
More like a mercenary guild might be a better way to put it. But
okay.
in any case, the idea is that it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And so the party had to get down there, and they managed to do so after guards who were looking for them, who had been on the lookout for the party, they managed to get around those guards because they met, specifically Aramis noticed a Promethean punk who was sitting up, kind of looking around, a person named Idrin Hexstar, who was waiting, just kind of looking around and figuring out angles that he could use to work on the crowd, presumably. Aramis went up and basically made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. They ended up making this trade. And what Idrin did was he basically leaped off the railing and plummeted onto the roof of a car a number of feet below. That got everyone freaked out, and it caused the guards to be pulled away from their spot in the elevator. The party made wasted no time, got onto the elevator, and the elevator closed and began to rather unsteadily make its way down into lower port 9, as the last thing the party saw before the end of the session was on the roof of this car, Idrin Hexstar giving them the whole thing as they went by, having done his job to them. And so as we pick up here, the party is in the elevator, and the elevator is on its way down and will, within the next minute or so, be all the way down to the bottom, where it will then open out on lower port 9. So my question before I do any of this is, do the party want to do anything in the next minute or so while you're on the elevator? And if so, what? Otherwise, we'll talk about what happens when the doors open. So, party, do you have anything you want to do?
Can we get a perception roll on the crowd in the elevator?
Sure, you can. It's crowded in here, and so that absolutely fits. Yes, you can make a perception check.
We perceive that Dragon Spear has subscribed with Twitch Prime.
Exactly. Thank you. Dragon Spear is subscribed. Thanks, Dragon. I appreciate it, man.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, remote hands. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Although, there we go. Took a second. Hey, pretty good.
21. Okay.
21.
I would say that what you can see in here, Aramis, is that a number of people seem to be very interested in all of you, and that mostly seems to be coming from the fact of the way that you just entered the elevator. Now, they don't know all the details. They just know that you bustled in, and you may remember that right at the end of the session, I mentioned that the guards were like, hey, as they were coming back over, but the doors closed. And so they're all kind of like doing the kind of like looking at you. None of them are looking at you like, I'm gonna, it's time to pull out the shiv. And no one's doing that, but you get the impression that they're definitely intrigued by your entrance into the elevator. And then there's some people there who just are looking out of the window or not paying attention at all. But there's probably about, it's a big elevator, and it's probably about 40 people in here, you would guess. And of that number, probably a good 15 or 20 of them are like looking back over their shoulders at the four of you.
I don't really want to play Petra Sinis right now. I'll let Kat do that. But I have a feeling that I'm channeling Kat, and I'm pretty sure she would start handing out cheese right now.
I was gonna say
true, because it's on the hammer.
Still disguised.
Yeah, it's still on the hammer. So I think this would be a great time for her to distribute this sort of like second tier cheese that we've been using as our cover story the whole time.
Yes. Second tier. Wow, I didn't know that. I thought this was.
She said she saved the good stuff. Yes, she specifically said that she just saved the good stuff for herself.
All right, so then she's handing out probably like Limburger, maybe like American cheese, maybe some Velveeta. If we're talking like
Velveeta.
Cheese whiz.
Melting slightly on that very hot hammer.
Swiss, yeah.
Cheese whiz. Yeah, exactly, Swiss. Havarti, perhaps the most overrated of all cheeses. There's nothing wrong with Havarti.
I love it.
It's fine, but it's just, you put it up against, if you put it up against mild cheddar, it just doesn't, it's just not there, man.
Here comes Big Havarti. Man, Greg, you were just putting your
first the Gilmore Girls, first that, and then now.
The Gilmore Girls probably would advertise Havarti, and that tells you a lot about the Gilmore Girls. I'm just kidding.
No, it would be about the Limburger on Gilmore Girls. Let's be honest.
Anyway, I do like Havarti. I'm just saying, compared to.
But yeah, we're still disguised. I believe.
Yes.
We're all in disguise.
Oh yeah.
Right now.
The last time you checked in with us was when we were still talking with the Promethean punk, and I think you said that we had 30 minutes or 15 minutes left. So
Yep.
I'm imagining by the time we get to the bottom of this, because mine and Johnny's I think are spell based with maybe like 15 minutes left. So
Yep.
we're still the Promethean gals.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, they're definitely looking at you in that regard. So as Petra is handing out cheese, some people do take it, and they seem to, thank you. Oh, it's really good. This is better than any Havarti, right? And I'm just eating. I'm just kidding.
And Petra just starts wailing on him.
It's
She
just,
just starts
how
hammering.
dare you? Yeah, exactly. She comes back and Kat's just like, what happened? And we're like, well, why is the elevator full of bodies and everyone's
exactly.
dead? We're like, well, it
You're
all
level
started.
9 now, Kat. You just got like 60,000 experience
Yeah,
points by
good
clearing
news.
out.
You're level 9.
You were just grinding on a bunch of elevator people. You had to go. And like,
Well, that totally seems like something. It's like the one place in the game where the NPCs respawn because it's a limited time. Oh, that's heck funny. It's like, yeah, I've been farming the elevator. That's funny.
oh man.
I can totally see
The
it.
Esper Genesis MMO. I want in on that action. Anyway, so you make your way down. So yeah, that's what I would say, Aramis, is that you see that people are interested in you. Petra is handing out the cheese, but you don't note anyone that looks particularly suspicious. Although, frankly, most of these people are not the ones that you saw on the penthouse level of Bliss Larkham's apartment. You know what I mean? Like the people up there were definitely the way they were dressed and everything. Down here, it's a lot more catch as catch can. This feels a lot more like Pelseros, like this is much more Pelseros territory, I think you would say. And also in a very diverse group even on here, you see a couple of Kesh. There looks to be an Eldori here. You can see not another Bellari, but you see others that are dressed in kind of these security suits. Some people that look a little bit like, don't come near me, kind of like hard-eyed humans that are dressed in outfits that look like that they're used for a certain kind of dance, and it's of the fighting variety, and so on. And so as the elevator continues to go down, you can the smell of cheese wafting through the elevator. It's not fast, this elevator, and unlike many elevators like the ones that you might have taken down from the penthouse level, this one rattles a bit. As I mentioned, there's like a couple of little cracks in the windows, and so forth. And so you're like, like kind of moving, but it's steadily making its way down. And after about 5 minutes or so, the elevator comes to a halt, and the doors sort of, with a little bit of a creak, open, to reveal what is down below. And I'm going to give you a picture of what that looks like on screen. Or on stream, I should say. So, welcome to the lower port 9. This is one of the corridors that actually makes its way, lit by these kind of sodium lights, that are up the top hanging here. These are some kind of sodium electro mixture, so that they are powered by electricity, but they kind of flicker a bit uneasily. The ground is wet permacrete, so it's kind of this
Can you say that one more time?
Sure, permacrete. It's kind of this, I guess you would say,
what kind of permacrete?
like wet permacrete.
Wet permacrete.
Wet permacrete. There's a lot
Are
of
you sure
dripping.
that's not the name of the NPC that we're meeting
Yes,
in
no,
a second?
no, I'm wet permacrete. Yes, yes.
Or like your cover band on weekends. Or...
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Sorry.
give it up for wet permacrete. No. No, this is wet permacrete. Permacrete is kind of a cheap kind of concrete, which is sets quickly and can handle moisture and is not particularly high quality, and so it's rough in spots. It is filled with trash, the ground is, and often the streets are just as wide as the alleys as you walk down them, so it's kind of hard to tell which is which at times as you're going down there. And you could say down here that I was thinking about what you said, Zach, about Cyberpunk. I mean, I would give to you the experience that you and Johnny all lived in person with the orange sky of Blade Runner in the Bay Area. This is a lot like that, in that there always seems to be this light drizzle around you, and yet it's not just water that we're talking about. There are all kinds of what looks like you smell chemical smells like detergents and kind of runoff and chemical waste in the precipitation. And so there are these weird swirling oily areas and different puddles along the street as you're walking along.
So we kind of get the idea that this is the exhaust pipe in a way, or this is the waste. These alleys are really the waste ways for the
exactly.
Bastion.
This is real exactly. This is basically where the Bastion pumps the stuff it doesn't want, and that includes not only its waste, it also includes its people. Some people that it doesn't want end up down here also. And the Bastion, which I have tried to describe as being essentially enormous. Maybe it isn't surprising that there's an area like this. What does surprise you, though, a bit is how much life it possesses despite all of what I've described. There are people walking up and down the alleys and streets. There are people trudging by, some people arguing with each other, a lot that sort of like look over their shoulders furtively occasionally. You don't see any security, by the way. You have yet to see any security guards down here. It just seems like it's teeming with life, albeit a different kind of life, I guess you might say. There are shafts of light as well that come down from various places above you. Technically, this is open to the upper atmosphere of the Bastion, but in practice, there are lots of like these buildings that almost bend over like kind of old men hunched over sitting in a bench. That's what it looks like. These buildings hunched over you as you are walking by them, small and squat. There are occasionally the classic, the barrels on fire in front that people are using to warm themselves, that kind of thing. And there are echoes that reverberate from the sectors above, so you can sometimes catch a snatch of music, like what you might have heard at the club, for example, or even Sleepwell, you sometimes think, although maybe it's your imagination, you hear a little bit of that classical music that was playing in the club, maybe. Somehow it echoes down here, creating this kind of sense of ghostly sort of ghostly inhabitants that are even beyond the people moving up and down the actual corridors, the actual sound of people elsewhere that are kind of drifting down here as well. And so the lack of security or maintenance in the area does help with your current situation, obviously, because you don't see any security down here, as I say, but it also provides little help towards warding off imminent threats. And there are definitely a few people as you're making your way through the corridor that kind of look over in your direction. And I would say, as you're making your way towards where you were told to meet this guy, Fel Amric, I would say that it's probably going to take you just about the time that you have left on your disguises, Kaz and Aramis. So you're going to have to decide what you want to do about that, whether you want to, renew them or whether you want to become yourselves, essentially, in preparation for this meeting with Fel Amric.
We know where we're going, though?
Yeah, you were given the basic idea of where he told you where he thought his brother was going to be hanging out.
Take a left here, go there.
Right. And
then the punk said he's sitting on a bench probably or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is also what you thought you had heard from Alden, the security chief.
Well,
about how long do we have before our abilities give up?
Probably about 5 minutes. You'll probably just about as long as it takes to get to the place is how long you have left, you would guess.
As we're walking, Kaz just quietly says enough so that the group can hear. Maybe we just let them drop and try to approach him so that he's the only one that sees us, but be very clear about who we are. Because eventually he'll have to know. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, if we're going to be out in the middle of the open, just in a park bench, and people see our disguises suddenly drop, that's going to draw a lot of attention. So maybe we should just duck into an alley and just, change out of it so that we're in control of when it changes.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do that if you wish. So if you're going to do that, give me just a second here while I add one other thing. Okay. A bit of Dome City Center. Okay. So, okay, you're able to do that. I mean, like, pretty much everywhere you look, there is an alley
Well,
nearby.
Just one quick thing, though.
Sure.
While disguises are being dropped, first I'm going to return the jacket that you let me cause back to you, so that
Well,
that is back in your inventory.
As you're doing that, Kaz says, well, when we get there, I don't know if his bench is out in the open or not, but if it is, then those of us who are disguises that are going to drop magically, we should probably be hiding in the alleyway, whereas maybe the two of you, pointing at Sleepwell and Petra, should be the ones at least to interact with him at first and guide him back to us, just because your guys' disguises are physical.
Good idea. Just keep that sniper rifle trained on us, will you?
All right, so I give you the coat back. So
Okay.
it is not Esper, but it does have technology, so you can change how it looks too if you ever wanted to. But
Yeah, and I think I will just try to blend in more with some of the outfits that I've seen, sort of like in the elevator, whatever nondescript workery thing I could do that
Okay.
that seems pretty common around here.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to do, though, is I want to send an encrypted message to Lamalkai using my personal computer that I carry with me all the time.
Okay.
That's like literally my inventory, and like it's probably like way underused for all the things that it could do. But
The battery's
yeah.
dead from not having been used for months. So damn it.
you need to install Windows.
Right, exactly. It's like I have to
Last
wait.
updated in 1988. Like, God damn it.
Oh, Microsoft. Yeah, but so I'd like to send her basically an encrypted message that basically tells her where we're located.
Okay. All right. And you're just sending it to her, not expecting a response, right? It just
That's
sort of-
right. I'm telling her sort of
Okay.
like where we are, what we're doing, and if you don't hear from us soon, come get us.
Send the posse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll make a note of that. Okay. So you do that. And as so once you've done all these things, you draw close then to, and just to confirm, Aramis, you are dropping your disguise also, right? As all of you just talked about.
Well, I actually have a question for Zach to look on my character sheet real quick about
Okay.
the
Yeah.
alter self.
Yep.
There's an ability there to alter the form of like body parts or whatever, like appendages, specifically to become weapons, like claws and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yes. Yep.
And that fits under the same sort of mechanic as doing the alteration.
Yes, it's the same spell that's going to drop in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, as
So
we,
you could, I mean, you could do it right now, but it says you can grow claws, fangs, spines, horns, or a different natural weapon of your choice, etc., etc. But that is all under the second level talent, alter form, which is going to be expended in 5 minutes. So I'm assuming that
Okay.
those would go away.
So when we decide to drop when we decide to drop the disguises, I'm going to instead put my hands in my pocket, and as the form drops of the Promethean female, my hands are going to grow into claws, 5-fingered claws essentially, and I'm just going to keep them pocketed
Okay.
in such a way that allows me to hide the fact that I now have weapons for hands.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Very cool.
you would have to cast alter form again to do that.
To affect the spell.
The ability to alter your form is under the branch of, or including like the natural weapons, is under the branch of having.
So it's a recast.
Yeah, if you still wanted to, because the hour duration is going to drop in 5 minutes, and anything that affects you from alter form will go away in 5 minutes. So if you wanted to change your hands to be claws as the spell's ending, you'd need to cast the spell again.
But I would need to cast the spell again in order to do it within the hour time frame as well. Is that what you're telling me?
No, you could let the 5 minutes pass and then the disguise drops and you can immediately recast it. It doesn't matter, but
All right,
yeah.
I'm clearly not understanding. So yeah, I'm gonna let the spell drop.
Johnny, the point is that the spell's going to drop in 5 minutes regardless. And so
I get that.
Yeah, so because that's going to happen, I mean, you could change your hands into claws for the last 5 minutes, I think, without
And that's what
recasting it. That's what you want to do?
That's what I'm doing. So as the form changes, as we drop the disguise, and I'm no longer the Promethean female, and I'm the I'm the Ashen Forged male, essentially, or the Ashen Forged. I don't think the Ashen Forged really have sex or gender in the same way, but as that form drops, my hands are going to turn into claws, and that is really just in response to the fact that we still have 5 minutes until we actually get
for the
to
last
this particular
5 minutes.
guy.
Okay.
Right. So we've got street people looking at us, and I don't want to look intimidating, but I want to be able to handle myself until I can get into a position to cast effectively.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
Yeah.
So you're changing, while you still have 5 minutes left, you're changing back to look like Aramis, but you're having claws in your arms or your
that is correct.
pockets.
Your hands.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Clawramus, if you will.
Hi, Clawramus.
Aramis is
Hi,
evil twin brother.
Clawramus. A startling new science fiction epic from Derek Jacobi. Okay, so yes, you're certainly able to do that. And despite the looking upon you with uncertainty, as some people do, you are not accosted or stopped by anyone for another few minutes until you find where you were led, where the coordinates led you to, where you were told you would find potentially this person, which is an abandoned strip of 3 clearly condemned buildings that have seen better days. They don't have anyone around them, mostly, with one exception I'm about to describe. The center building has a rusty metal sign over the doorway that reads the Solar Ring. And this place looks very much like a place that at some point would have been a standard, a bar, a watering hole, right? But is clearly abandoned, or at least it seems like it's abandoned, but not entirely. There's not a lot of people down in this particular area of Lower Port 9. And as you're coming up to that building, you can see that there is indeed a bench not far from it. And sitting on the bench is someone who looks completely incongruous with the surroundings. In that, this is someone dressed in actual finery, like looks to be, dressed very much as someone that you might see at the penthouse level, with Bliss Larkham, etc. It is a Kesh, and he is sitting with his legs crossed, kind of his arm back against the bench, and you're looking at him. I would also ask everyone to make a lore check for me, please. Intelligence or lore check.
So, I'll do that for Aramis.
Sleepo, you're like, all right, it's a Kesh.
Yeah.
Outstanding. I'm a big fan of these Kesh.
This is Aramis's.
Okay, 19. Aramis with a 19. Okay, we'll come back to that.
I've been looking back at some of my kind of like passive hunter abilities, and I still have this thing called Know Your Target, which is basically like a hunter choosing its quarry that you study and that you do extra damage to, but mine are still set to constructs, Kesh because of Bliss Larkham still, and humans were my 3.
Right.
And I forgot about these features here. One of them says, whenever you make an intelligence lore check or an intelligence xenobiology check to recall information about your chosen quarry, you're considered proficient in both lore and xenobiology and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency.
Ah, okay.
So I'll finally decide to use that.
Okay, good call.
As he is a Kesh.
Hey, what's up, Rising Tides? Always a pleasure.
That'll be...
A Rising Tides is never late. He arrives exactly when he means to.
So pretty low roll, but a 13.
A 13, okay. So most of you, I would say that, Sleepwell, you're just kind of like, okay, it's a Kesh.
Yeah.
Kaz, something seems familiar about this guy, and you're not 100% sure why. But Aramis, you think you actually do remember a little bit more of why. And you think the reason is that you might actually have caught sight of this Kesh when you were in the club and were making your way when you had that big, crowd surfing moment, etc. You're pretty confident that you remember seeing the face of this person. You don't remember a whole lot. It wasn't looking at you like you will remember this moment, but the face is very familiar to you, and you think you might have seen him at this club. So
He wouldn't happen to have been the doorman, would he?
No, not the doorman. No, that's a good guess.
Okay,
but
just
it was
making
not
sure.
Nope, not the doorman.
Where in the building do I remember seeing this particular
inside the club? So it was inside, like in the main
on the dance floor,
right.
by the bar.
On the stairs? It would have been near the bar, but not the bartender. Just one of those people that was around the area.
Okay, one final question then.
Sure.
Did he have one of the visors at the time? Was he clearly like holding onto one of the visors, or was he wearing one? He just didn't have it on.
You do not remember him wearing a visor, no.
All right. So subtly across the radio frequency, or across the radio, as I believe we're kind of splitting up, I would relay this information and advise everybody to be absolutely cautious.
That seems very logical, and in case people are wondering what the heck is going on and why everything looks weird, the reason is because we have been joined by our fourth member, who is here, and I'm going to capture video, and maybe as I'm doing that, Kat, welcome, and it's good to have you here. I hope everything went well with the cat herding, so to speak. You herding, you as the different cat herding other cats. I hope everything went well. But how are you? How is life in the universe and everything with you? And who are you playing? And then I'll get you caught up on where we are.
It is super busy, but one of the reasons I get super busy is because I had a book come out this week.
Yay!
You are
That's
curious?
right. Yep.
Look at
This
that.
is, and the last trump shall sound. You can see the beautiful picture of our president with
Amazing.
The pitchfork holding
Yes.
Pence. Yep.
So that's been really interesting, doing various podcasts, and we have been pronounced unfit for Christians to read already.
Oh, good.
So
Good. Congratulations.
That's kind of awesome.
That's a good moment. Yep.
I've never had that happen before.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a cool week actually.
Outstanding. Yeah, I'm excited. I actually mentioned that on our YouTube video of our last session, Kat, we got our first ever dislike of an Esper Genesis video. And it was from someone who left a comment, which I have removed because it was inappropriate, who disagreed with our take on the situation with Justice Ginsburg, etc. So I was like, I'm glad. I
We're
believe
moving
it was
up in the world.
absolutely. I believe it was a certain important president who said, "I welcome their hatred." So
That's it.
yeah,
Haters gonna hate. That's how you know you're doing right.
right.
Actually.
Exactly. We
You
arrived
stir
that
up a
way.
little contention.
Exactly, Dragon. Good point. It is the fake Christians, not the cool ones, as always, right? As always. Exactly. But I'm glad. So congratulations on the book. It is great. And so yeah. Otherwise, when you are here in this guise, who are you playing when you're here?
I am playing Petrosinus, a ashen forged sentinel with a very large axe and
Hammer.
a certain
Hammer.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm so anxious because last time I was gone, I somehow ended up becoming captain. So I just want to make
You've
sure
been
nothing.
captain for a while.
Well,
Yeah.
you know
somebody
what,
else
Commander
needs to-
Petra? This is what I would say. It's been an interesting couple of minutes.
Also, your head cheese distributor now. That's
Oh,
official.
head
That's also
well,
true. Yes.
That is a role I embrace as head cheesemonger. All right. Someone's going to need to catch me up. I'm
Yes,
afraid.
I will do so quickly. There hasn't been a whole lot yet. The party finished taking their elevator down. You were being looked at with interest by some people in the elevator. Mostly, it seems, because they saw the fact that you got in the elevator before the guards could get back to you, and so some people were like, "Oh," and so that's when you began to distribute cheese, as it was made very clear to me, second-tier cheese that you had on the top of your hammer. So I suggested perhaps Havarti, which was overrated, and I did that on purpose so I could get people mad at me. So they were all like, "How dare you say?" Anyway, so you distributed cheese, and then when they got to the bottom, you made your way into this area, and I have a picture up on stream that shows you what this place looks like. Just to quickly recap the area here of Lower Port 9, The ground here is wet permacrete, so it's filled with trash. Permacrete is basically this kind of very cheap, quick to set, handles moisture, not very good quality, very uneven, all that sort of thing down here. Streets are filled with trash, and the streets often are as wide as the alleys are, so it's sometimes hard to tell, which is which as you're looking at it. The weather is very much, and I hate to bring this up for someone who was on the West Coast, as I did with Johnny and Zach here, but very much the way that the Bay Area looked, a few short weeks ago, very Blade Runner-y in the sense that it's a light drizzle down here, but it's not just water or rain. It's actually there's a smell in the air. There is a lot of chemical runoff down here, and chemical waste and detergents and things like that. You can see swirling little oily eddies in the puddles as you pass by. There is light that some of the lanterns that are here that are sort of technically electrically managed, but they kind of flicker uneasily as you walk by. There's sometimes these shafts of light from above. And there are echoes coming from the above sectors. Some kind of trick of the acoustics means that from higher areas in the Bastion, some music sometimes filters down, giving the whole area this kind of unreal and almost ghostly quality, despite the fact that it's teeming with life. There are people moving back and forward, hurrying to various things. You see people sort of talking with each other, glancing furtively over their shoulders as you pass, kind of laughing sometimes with each other, watching you folks as you walk by.
We lost Johnny.
Oh, I lost Johnny. Shoot, I just fixed all the windows too. All right, well, I'm going to wait.
I was
opted
just
to tell
thinking.
you while you were in the middle of recapping.
Damn it.
Because now would be the time to do that.
Yeah.
Although, he might pop right back in.
Yeah, I'm not
He
going to. Yeah,
might.
here he is. All right, he's back, so
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
admit him. There we go. Hey, I didn't lose any windows. Okay, good.
I
Nice.
still get a kick out of that background every time, Kat. That's amazing.
Isn't it cool? I love it.
But so yes, in any case, so that's kind of what the environment is like down here. And we had just gotten to the space where you had been given the coordinates of where this guy that you're supposed to meet, Fel Omric, who you may remember was the security captain's brother, the one that the security captain basically said, this guy knows, where all the bodies are buried. He was not very happy about telling you this because he doesn't trust his brother, quite obviously, but he knows his brother had contacted him and let him know that he'd be available to gather, to give some information out. And so because Alden didn't believe that you were responsible, you and the party was responsible for what happened to Bliss Larkham or her manager, he felt that the only way that he could do was to send you kind of off-grid, so to speak. And there's no place that's more off-grid in the area of the Bastion that's still on the Bastion than Lower Port 9. So you are making your way up now to an area of abandoned strip of 3 condemned buildings. And the center building has a rusty metal sign over the doorway that reads the Solar Ring. And right near this building is a bench on which is sitting this completely incongruous to the setting because he is perfectly dressed to the nines, wearing a tuxedo in a meatpacking plant or something, just does not fit, the circumstances here, and is waiting on a bench and is looking at you as you arrive. And I just asked everybody to do a perception check for me, so I'm going to ask you to do that also. Specifically, I'd actually like you to make a lore check for me. Yeah, not perception, sorry. A lore check for me. Petra, please.
I'm convinced I know it, but I don't.
You
But I'm gonna
catch
grab
up to
my
everyone.
Esper Genesis book. This reminds me I need to grab my book 1 second.
Okay, all right. So Aramis has passed on that information, which you can pass on to Kat in just a moment. I will say, Kat, that that Aramis just passed along to Petra and to everybody quietly that he thinks he recognizes this guy sitting on the bench from having been one of the people in the club where you dealt with all the people and managed to get to Bliss Larkham and met Merrick for the first time and all that stuff. Aramis thinks he recognizes this Kesh. But in any case, the Kesh sees you there, and as you sort of arrive close, has this big smile on his face, which seems to be kind of equal parts friendly and creepy. And he says, Ah, welcome. A little drone told me of your predicament, he says. Before you ask, I'll introduce myself. My name is Felomric. I'm what you would call a talented sim curator who also solves fascinating puzzles for my employers. Problems like the way infiltrators use our resources to frame innocent people.
Okay, then.
Have our
Aramis speaks up and...
disguises
Sorry.
drop lip? I just want to make sure our surroundings are set first.
You're standing in front of the bench. This area, as I mentioned, is one of the more quiet areas since you've been down inside
So
inside
there's
this area.
no one else around.
Well, there's a few that kind of walk by, but they're that no one seems to be looking at you, and there's not many here. No, most of them are like elsewhere in the area, but not here.
Kaz at the least will step aside and try to, if he can, still be in earshot, but not in eye shot, if that makes sense.
Okay, I mean, he saw you though, like, so you know that already.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But at this point, if someone else walks by, I don't want them to see me.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'll kind of go into a nearby alley or crouch behind some trash barrel or something like that.
I'll be sure to keep my comm open so you can hear what he's saying through the comm.
That's good.
All right. And yeah, in fact, I'll watch the scene through my scope.
And he says, well, I see you've already decided to secure a perimeter. You have nothing to fear around here, I can tell you. There is no one who's going to bother us that matters anyway. But I admire your caution. You're going to need a lot more of it before this is all through.
And then Johnny, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I don't mind taking point on this because I've actually got a very pointed, very direct question given what he just said to us. So Aramis would move forward in the towards him, hands still in pocket, as I'm imagining the illusion or the alter self and the that spell or that ability is going to drop.
About 30 seconds, yeah.
Right. So Aramis would move forward and say, "Well, okay, if that's your pitch to us, where is she? You clearly got to know."
He says, I do, or at least I have a pretty good guess. I know the people involved, and I know Bliss particularly well. Bliss and I go way back. And he kind of fixes you with a sort of a... It's hard to read him. He has kind of this sort of half smirk all the time on his face. But you note that his eyes are very piercing. You know, his gaze is very piercing. His eyes are very much focused on you, Aramis. And he still, even though his posture is otherwise relaxed, and he says, Bliss means a lot to me, and I want to make sure that she's brought back. In fact, I want to make sure that you are all have your names cleared, because you're not responsible for what happened to her. You are, however, going to be responsible if you let her die. I think I can solve both problems for you, both saving her and saving your own skins. Unless you want to stay down here for the rest of your lives, you're not going to make it out into the bastion elsewhere without a little bit of assistance.
So I'm going to turn...
Assistant.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
At this point,
We're also polite.
He looks at both of you.
Sleepwell turns around and just is like, does that sound like he's the guy who set us up? Like he's the guy who's like, oh, I'll fix both your problems because I caused both problems.
You know, Sleepwell, I'm actually, it's one of those rare times, buddy, where I am in complete agreement with you. It sounds like this guy actually put us in the position that we're in right now.
He says,
I think you should talk to him. I think you are the perfect person to make sure that this guy knows exactly who he's dealing with.
So, I'll turn around very smugly right now, feeling very encouraged by this weird new Aramis,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna say, yeah.
Okay. So he just kind of like he kind of tilts his head and he's like, yeah?
Oh, so you admit it?
And he's like, no. I don't admit that I was responsible for doing all of this, because I wasn't. I can tell you, though, that I know the people who were. And they're people that have a connection to you, I think.
So at this point, Sleepwell just sort of like crosses his arms. By the way, we do still have my Quick Construct with me too. So the Quick Construct, who is the headless version of Aramis,
Yes.
also is going to cross his arms with me. We're
His eyes like flicker over to him for just a second and then back to you, the headless.
And I'm going to say, like, let me guess. Does it start with the letters Shadow Technocracy?
He says, oh, you've heard of the Shadow Technocracy.
Yeah, the thing is that the Shadow Technocracy is like the big boogeyman that keeps chasing us, but really it's just a bunch of people who call themselves the Shadow Technocracy. And what I think we need from you is some assurance that you aren't a part of the Shadow Technocracy. How can we do that? How can we secure the fact that you are not? I know. I can detect when people are lying.
And he kind of raises his eyebrows. Really?
Uh-huh. And if you don't resist, we can all be very clear about all of the information that you're giving us.
So he nods and he says, although I've learned a lot about you, Ludicrous Sleepwell, and although I am honored to be in the presence of the heroes of the Bastion, I will have to ask your forgiveness in that I don't want to reveal every secret I have. Partially, this is a matter of survival. I know that one of the reasons you found me was through my saintly, ever-loving brother. And while I deeply love Alden and would do anything to make sure that he was kept perfectly safe, I'm afraid that Alden does not feel the same way about me. Now, I heard that you were going to be coming to find me and that Alden was sending you. That tells me either that Alden has allowed his overdeveloped sense of morality to guide his actions, and that he wants his brother to help him out of a jam that he can't figure out with a gun and a prayer. Or it tells me that he's sold out and gotten as corrupted as everybody else. So I'll make you a counteroffer. You have every right to be suspicious of me, and the only thing I can provide you is information. But if my information jives with what you know, if it connects with what you already believe you've understood from various sources of your own, then I think you might have your answer. But I can't permit myself to go under a full zone of truth until I know much more about all of you and your minions. And his eyes kind of flicker back over to the headless guy.
Sleepwell, may I interject something for just a second here?
Oh, by all means, my good man.
Everyone's like, what is this? Okay.
Kaz in the far distance, looking at the scene through the scope, is panning between Aramis and
Yeah.
Sleepwell very confusedly. Like,
Decided
Are you
Who's
trying
the
to decide
imposter?
which one to
Yeah.
shoot or something?
I was going to say, range find on this
that
one,
happens
range
to be
find
a function
on
of the gun, but
Yep.
it's also a really good set of binoculars. Okay, look, it's how it works.
Aramis turns to Fel and says, in this conversation, you have offered us neither assurance nor any confidence as to the fact that any of your information is going to be of value to us, other than the fact that you claim to know Bliss Larkin. The one thing that you have assured us is that we're going to die unless we take your help. Your brother earned our trust by telling us the truth. We're only going to cooperate with you if you do the same. And my good friend Sleepwell right here is going to be the judge of that. Because despite some misgivings, he's an okay judge of character.
And so he kind of looks for a moment. He says, and did you subject my brother to this?
No, because your brother is an honorable person, and his high sense of morality still stands out as everybody else around him falls to corruption.
Certainly. His high sense of morality, which keeps him from being corrupt, but which does not keep him from serving as part of a system which keeps everyone down here, and he kind of widens his arms to reveal all of this area, on the lower levels, while he gets to guard the higher-ups, enjoying themselves in the clubs and the restaurants and the rest of the beautiful, gorgeous, the cradle of the Silrain Arc, the Bastion.
So
I
you're
don't-
a man of the people dressed like that, and I'm sure that you've been stuck here low these many years, just hoping for your chance to make it big up top. Cut the sob story.
So
Nobody's buying it.
So he shakes his head. He says, "Oh, no. No, I have not been down here for as long as you might think." And he says, "So none of you recognize me at all? You've never seen me before?"
Oh, I saw you at the club.
Ah,
Explain yourself.
I will. And so he holds out his hand, and he's got a little one of those. The example I would use would be the bounty puck in The Mandalorian, which has this like little mini hologram that like pops up above it, basically. So he holds out his hand, and this little hologram thing pops up, and you see Bliss Larkham. And you see Bliss Larkham is sort of smiling and talking, and for a moment you think like, you know, is this actually her right now? And then you realize that this is some recording, and she seems to be getting ready for what might have been one of her performances. You can't hear any sound, but you can see her kind of visually gesticulating and getting, you know, putting on her last bits of her costume, you know, her outfit for the show and whatever. And then the hologram, sort of the camera that's the vid here, pans back. And you see next to her is none other than Fel Omric, who is speaking to a number of people and waving at them and sort of nodding and then gesturing something over. And then you see a camera come onto the screen, and Fel Omric stands in front of it and sort of puts the hand forward like, okay, now go. And the camera starts to roll, and suddenly the hologram shifts to show a TV, a vid screen, and to show Fel Omric on it. But the Cryon, I hope that's right, underneath him that you can see, does not say Fel Omric. It says underneath there, the person underneath actually says Canlis Heidel, and you may remember that Alden was, his last name was Heil. So this one, Anric Heil, manager Bliss Larkham. Now, you knew the manager, the last manager you knew of Bliss Larkham was Merrick. That was the last you had heard. And so this Cryon of Anik Heil, and you see him kind of waving and smiling and talking, looking very much the way he looks right now, actually, even right down to the way that he's dressed. And then the camera pans over, and you see him giving Bliss Larkham a hug, and then walking off the camera, and then she begins to do what is obviously some kind of a performance. Bliss Larkham, incidentally, looks a little bit younger in this than you knew her. Maybe, it's not clear how much younger, but definitely a few years before. And then the hologram winks out, and he says, "That was me, and it was Bliss. I used to be Bliss's manager before she became the biggest deal. I used to be Bliss's manager when she was just a nobody making her way gradually from club to club. But Bliss had exceptional, incredible talent. I saw that talent, and Bliss saw in me someone who wasn't just going to use her and discard her, but wanted her to be able to express herself to the people of the Bastion and the galaxy of the Silrain Arc, without having to worry that they were going to take it and throw it back in their face later on. I personally discovered her. I managed her. I built her career.
And then she dumped you?
No. Merrick jumped me, and Merrick's employers. Do you know who runs Altai Media, Bliss's company?"
No, we do not.
Well, I'll give you a hint. It's the same corporation that you've had some run-ins with already. Many of them, I'd say. Zephyr Corps owns Altai Media. And Zephyr Core is not completely in control of all of its own business. You were asking how you can trust me in all this, and I'll tell you how in just a moment. But first I need to tell you a little bit of a story. And he leans back and he says, cast your mind back, if you will, and imagine that you're a researcher, a low-level, entry-level intern scientist working at Zephyr Corporation, the largest corporation in the Silrain Arc. Imagine that you are this low-level intern researcher who's really smart, good student, really smart, insightful ideas, a burning passion and curiosity for what makes things go and work and operate. Imagine that you have a particular interest in the melding of organic life and synthetic life. Imagine that you have a dream to make the most powerful and extraordinary artificial intelligence. And over time, as things go on, you find that the resources at Zephyr Corporation make it a lot easier to conduct those experiments. Oh, not wholly legally, of course. You have to do this sometimes after hours. You have to do this at times when there isn't as much security in the building, where your colleagues aren't looking, where you can get access to labs perhaps that you shouldn't have, and access to experiments that you weren't supposed to get. Imagine that this unknown researcher gradually makes his way up the food chain. Imagine that he's so brilliant that you manage to convince others that they should reward your brilliance with more attention, more resources. Perhaps you can even bring some of your experiments out into the open, but carefully, because Zephyr has a reputation to maintain, and even Zephyr Corporation has some standards. You, on the other hand, are not concerned with morality or standards or ethics. You are concerned with what you can do to advance your own scientific name. Imagine that you one day have that information revealed, leaked by one of the people you thought you could trust, and suddenly Zephyr Corporation wants nothing to do with you. Imagine if you then leave, take some of your friends, take some of those resources that you gathered, flee their jurisdiction, flee their notice, but you don't shut down, because you are determined to bring your genius to the galaxy, your genius to the Silrain Arc, no matter what it takes. This person I'm talking about is the founder of a rogue branch of the Zephyr Corporation. It is known only as Stormdark. And over the last several cycles, it has spent that time trying to get its hooks into everything it possibly can, including, and he looks over at you, Sleepwell, the Shadow Technocracy. Stormdark has been attempting to perfect a self-evolving computer code, and if they succeed in it, it will grant them dominion over all galactic society. And if I don't know what Stormdark will want to do with that power, I can damn well tell you I know what the Shadow Technocracy would want to do with it. Shut down those that are not perfectly well evolved. Shut down those that are not machine enough for them. Shut down those that are not perfected enough for them. You will become a cyborg, or you will be slaughtered like the flesh and meat that you are. Do you know who the hero of my little story happens to be? The one who founded Stormdark, who even now is running it in the shadows? And he looks at all of you.
Well, don't keep us in suspense.
And he kind of looks around and waits and says, I'm surprised that you wouldn't know the name Laris Baladin, or that you wouldn't know that Laris Baladin had experiments running all the time, that he's responsible for one of the great threats that faces all of us, that you helped partially eliminate. And he sort of stops and then says, one of his experiments involved Bliss Larkham. You managed to thwart that experiment. You managed to save the Bastion and her before a disastrous nanobite invasion that would have destroyed much of the Bastion and certainly a lot of its people. The experiment failed, but Bliss has disappeared, and to cover their tracks, Stormdark has now forged data to frame you as scapegoats, while they continue to perform their experiments. They kill 2, 4, he looks at the minion, 5 birds with 1 stone this way, because this way they get rid of you, and they give themselves more time to continue their experiments. And he kind of pauses and looks at all of you.
So you've said a lot of things. You've proven very little. You held up this darling little hologram, which, a college student in a weekend could produce, pretty much any kind of low quality images that you wanted to there. And you fed us a long story about how all of this is happening. But where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Where's the assurance? We're still waiting.
And he nods. Good, Sleepwell. As I said, all of you are going to need a lot more caution as we move ahead here. I haven't proven it yet, and here I will. And he pulls out that puck that I mentioned again, and he puts it next to him, and he adds, drawing from his pockets of this, gorgeous silk suit that he's wearing, and he puts 2 more of these pucks down, so there's now a triangle of them. And he presses a couple of buttons on the side, and suddenly a much larger hologram pops up with 2 pictures. And it is a picture of Arisa Angel and a picture of Garland, who you may have remembered from your previous experience at Pelsaros. And he looks at those and he says, "This is how I know most of these, because Arisa and Garland, Canero Praxis, his other name, told me that you were going to be on your way here. Both of them have been trying to keep Stormdark from succeeding. Now Arisa has gone completely dark herself, or dark to almost everyone but me. I am now her only contact to the outside world. Arisa was the one who originally sent you the messages and the information that you needed, and Praxis has been helping try to get more of that information to you. He's a brilliant hacker, and Arisa knows more about the inner workings of Zephyr Core than anyone else that I know. But she's in an extraordinarily dangerous place right now. If she makes the wrong move, she'll be found. And before they kill her, they will rip her mind from her and do what they want with it. I don't want that to happen, because I like Arisa. I've known her for many years. And I don't want Abraxas to get hurt either, because I've known him for many years. And I certainly don't want you to get hurt, because all of you saved Bliss, a person who I once considered my closest friend, from certain destruction and death. I am convinced that when they did what they did to her, that Bliss was not herself. And when you freed her, Bliss was about to become purely free, was about to rat them out, spread the word to everyone about what was happening. And then, coincidentally, not only does she disappear, but that snake Merrick ends up getting killed. And if you think that Merrick was killed by some outside force or committed suicide in his own cell, all of you are too smart for that. Arisa and Garland are my proof. And if you want more, I'll give you the opportunity to be able to contact them directly. These are the people who told me that I could trust you. And the only reason I'm speaking to you is not because I love this place, and he kind of again holds his hands out down here, or because I love what the Starlight Cross can provide me. But these people down here have been treated terribly, and it's only when I lost the managership and found out some of these things that I began to realize why. I've been a smuggler for a long time. I've been a manager for even longer. But there's certain things you don't do. You don't break your word. You don't kill an innocent. And you certainly don't try to destroy most of the people of the Bastion and most of the Silrain Arc by turning them into some robot-human hybrid against their will. Whatever my brother happens to believe about me, I can tell you that much our morality is in agreement. And he kind of leans back and crosses his arms.
Cool story, bro. Just 1 second. And I'm gonna like turn around and kind of huddle with the other folks here.
Oz will come up as well.
And you know what I'm gonna say is like they could use an AI very easily to mimic the voice of someone if he's in control of the network. Do we have a way to get a message to Praxis to be able to hear from his own mouth, like through a connection that we make? Is that something that we can do? And I'm kind of semi-asking this out of character, not quite knowing what technology.
Okay, so let me know if you want me to answer that or not. Because I mean, if you want to talk it over with your teammates, it's possible.
Is that something that we've been able to do in the past?
We have been able to call on Praxis in the past.
You have been able to do so, although you have not done so since after meeting, Aram,
Medici?
Yes, thank you, Medici. Not since meeting Medici, because this is when Arisa went dark just before, remember, you went to find Medici, and that was the last thing she said is go find Medici. And since then, you haven't wanted to contact Abraxas because you haven't wanted to draw attention to him or you, especially because you're worried that the Long Winter has been monitoring communications, long-range communications. And so, so it's conceivable you could try. It's just there may be a risk. That's all.
Oz says, with us all knowing that now, I mean, it sounds like contacting either of them would blow both of our covers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's worth having him get in contact either. So maybe we can just ignore whatever connection that is. Obviously, he has some sort of information about how to recover bliss.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if we are thinking that he might be trying to lead us into a trap, maybe what we could try to be aware of is how him leading us to bliss would be leading us into a trap. I don't know. This seems like an extremely advanced and convoluted way of Bastion capturing us and throwing us away. I think I'd trust him, although he's a bit of a chauvinist.
I think a trap would be much less complicated and a bit more effective.
He's got us in a position where we can't make any contact at all. He knows that. He knows that he has us over the barrel, and he's not willing to give us the information that we want in the form of validating any of his statements as true. I am completely assuming that this is a trap at this point, and I think we need to assume moving forward that we can't trust him at all. That being said, he should suffer us being difficult with him for as much as possible so that it keeps him off kilter.
Sure.
So you're saying we should be as difficult as possible. That's going to be
no problem.
That's why I suggested that Sleep will take the lead on that.
So that was why.
Awesome.
All makes sense now.
Hey, do you turn around Sleepwell slightly less smugly then? Or are you kind of like,
no, actually, I'm kind of purring right now. I'm just like, I got you, man. I'm a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I think we have each other's backs.
Yeah.
No matter who we meet, whether or not we can trust them or not. I mean, this guy comes on recommendation of someone else that seemed trustworthy. That may have. Does that mean that he's also colluding us into a trap?
No, but if I read the situation correctly, his brother does not really trust him all that much, and basically warned us against trusting him. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember.
He also led us here to information. I think they would have to be in collusion, and they're just railroading us. So, Alden shows a better place. There's nowhere where you can go except for this one place, and we have to go down.
That is true.
You can't talk to anybody else. Here, I've got your one solution for you. It feels like we are being absolutely corralled into one and only one way to do things that, if it's not exactly a trap, it's also not exactly, like it feels like cannon fodder, perhaps, or we're being,
the brothers have some sort of ulterior motive, maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Also,
So-
I do want to make just one quick note, by the way, which is that just as a quick reminder for everybody that Highland had of Alden had also mentioned that essentially, I hate to use this phrase because you're going to be like, wait, but he betrayed them. It's a little bit like the whole Han Solo and Lando Calrissian thing, where it's like he has no love for the Empire. I'll tell you that. Like he was sort of like, I know my brother hates my authority and hates our authority, and like, you know, is not ever going to work for the Bastion like security force people, is what he told you. Now, in fairness, that was him telling him, and if you think they're in collusion, then that's... But I'm just letting you know that he did also mention he didn't think you can trust him, but he also thinks that he would never work, you know, for Bastion people. Just as a reminder.
And Aramis would be the voice of dissent in the act that the idea that they're colluding together. In that, you know, Aramis would basically speak up and say, it would be a fair jump for that do-gooder to want to set us up. He seemed to believe pretty fairly in the idea that there is a right and wrong, and sometimes to get to the right, you have to do wrong.
Yeah. No matter what, we'll be watching each other's backs, I should say. I say we just, you know, he seems to have, just like Alden, a very straightforward idea of what we need to do, where we need to go. So let's, I say we play along.
Fair enough.
Okay. So then, you know, I turn back and, you know, I say to him, so why were you fired as manager?
He says, I was not fired just from being a manager. I was fired from my position in which I was working. I worked for Altai Media. I was one of their talents. Their talent managers, scouts, you might call them. And I was fired because supposedly I had mismanaged Bliss's career, and I was too selfish in keeping her away from the places that she wanted to go and be. And by that they meant that I was keeping them from getting their hands on her. After they took over is when all of this stuff with the sim and the nanos and all the other stuff came into play. That was never what Bliss was that interested in. She wanted bigger audiences, sure, but she didn't want to do it at the cost of her own brain, at the cost of her own humanity, or, I suppose, her Kesh nature is a better way to put it. She didn't want to do it at the cost of her organic quality. They were the ones that started making her into something more synthetic than organic.
Did she stay in touch with you?
At first, yes. In fact, we talked quite frequently. Then, the messages dwindled, and eventually I was cut off entirely. When you saw me that night at the club, Aramis, I had gone there directly. I wanted to see if I could actually speak to her, in person, none of this other stuff. And I didn't get anywhere near her. Her guards kept me away, and that scum-sucking, and he kind of goes off into some language. Do any of you speak Kesh, by the way?
I don't.
Okay, so he goes off into some language that you don't follow, but it sounds pretty much the universal sign for this mother son of a, you know, the curse thing, right? And comes out on the other side of it and says, Merrick had already decided I wasn't going to be seen. In fact, I saw some security headed my way to escort me out of the place when, Aramis, you did your little surfing routine. Good work, by the way. If I ever get back on the right side of my career, we'll have to talk about that.
So why haven't you gone after her since you know where she is?
He says, I have, multiple times, but I've done it in the only way I know how to do, and it's gathering information. The problem is where I think she's being held, and that's going to be difficult, and it's why I came to you. I'm pretty confident that she's actually being kept in the top floor of, and he kind of pauses and shakes his head, the main Zephyr Core building in the Bastion. Altai Media is on the bottom floors. And where she's being kept, almost certainly, is on the 79th floor of the Zephyr Corp building. The reason I know that is because it's where a lot of the data stores are kept. And it is where, allegedly, Laris Baladin used to live in the past. They keep her there because not only is she not going to have access with any of those employees, but do you have any idea how many security systems need to be bypassed just to get within several floors of that place, let alone into it itself? There's probably no more secure place on the Bastion, even more secure than the prisons here, as you've probably seen from recent events. So I couldn't get there, but I found a way to get you there, if you're willing to work with me to do it.
So, just now, you said that's why I came to you.
He nods.
Yeah, but we came to you. You didn't come to us unless you somehow arranged this meeting?
I did. I reached out to my brother and told him that I had information for the right people. And I happened to know, from my own information sources, that you were the people he was going to be speaking with. It didn't take too much to put together, since I knew it was a lie that you were responsible, that you were going to be on the run. And if there's anyone I can think of that's better at taking down Zephyr Corporation and their assorted people than you, I don't know who it is. You can look at any school child can look at a vid feed from the last 6 months and see the arc that you've cut of problems across the Silrain arc for these people.
I turn back to everybody else. It's like, I just don't trust him at all. You know, I'm saying this very loudly. Like, I don't trust this guy, like, at all. Like, he's found a way in, but he's waiting for us to show up, and we're the ones to do it. Like, this sounds like a really big setup.
Kaz
For those of
turns-
you still waiting, like looking towards him, like looking at, because Sleepwell turns away, like you can see that he still has his kind of he's put his arm back up on the bench, and he just has that same kind of, again, I say smirk, but it never changes. Like it, you know, like he never seems to smile too much or get too, like he just seems to be waiting.
Kaz turns to him and says, so going along with this plan of how you're going to get us up there, are you going to be sending us off and staying down here to monitor, or are you going to be coming with us, or what? What's
He
your
says, I have no chance of getting into Altai Media, the place where I used to work myself, and
But
not
how
get
do we-
noticed. That, he said, is partially thanks to your friend, Abraxas, part of what makes this possible. And he takes out, on his hand, these four, what look like, these four small chips, computer chips. They look, but they look decent sized. I'm trying to think of an example. I will use the example of this thing I recently discovered of 2 francs in my mother's collection of coins that I just found, which is an actual 2 franc from 1941 when my mother was living in France. So it's about the size of a coin like this. Each one of them are, except it's square instead of circular. And as you're looking at it, you can see that there are blue lines kind of making their way across the face of this chip, and there are 4 of them. And he says, this thing is called a Drazwi implant. It's a wrist-implanted chip. And thanks to Abraxas, it's been modified. Normally, these are ID tracking chips. They're designed to notify security when someone has come within range of their sensors, and it's used and placed into the wrists of every single employee of Zephyr Corps. In fact, I had one of those, until, for reasons that may now be clear, and he rubs his hand over his wrist, and you can see there is a slight scar in his wrist there. It was important to get it removed. And he kind of looks right at that and, you know, looks at it and kind of rubs it and says, the difference, thanks to Abraxas, is that this doesn't reveal yourself to Zephyr Corps. It negates your presence completely. Any implanted individual that it finds will read you as a Zephyr employee. And once you're inside, there are certain places, cameras and things like that, which won't even spot you at all. It'll render you, to them anyway, essentially invisible. This is what's going to allow you to get inside that building. And then, assuming you can get past the kind of human, Promethean, Kesh, Eldori element, the organic element, let's say, if you can get past the organic element and those guards, and you can get to the elevator that will bring you up to the penthouse, that then will give you access to the room that you need. Because the only way to get into the 79th floor, where I think you're going to find Bliss, is by taking the elevator to the penthouse and then going from the penthouse to floor 79. There is no elevator access to that floor. Only the penthouse allows access to it, and it's by design. The only other way to get in would be to somehow fly something up to the 80th floor, get in there, and then from the 80th floor go down to the 79th floor, where you'll be able to find, I think, Bliss. So, once you're there, and he holds up one other little chip. Once there, I have this. It's a decryption chip, and basically it looks like a USB drive. You've seen little things like this throughout your various times in Esper Genesis. Cubles sometimes are found on these too. And he says, this is a decryption chip that will allow you to get access to Stormdark's control hub, the personal one that's up there. Once you get that security breach, you're going to be able to find out not only what happened to Bliss, and assuming Bliss is there, not only will you be able to rescue Bliss, but you'll be able to clear your names using this decryption chip. You will be able to completely clear the database, and by doing that, the Bastion is no longer going to view you as a threat, because you will have no criminal record in their eyes. This way you save Bliss and yourselves.
Sleep well. I wish I could make expressions like humanoid races can, because I would be copying yours. And Kaz turns to Amrik and says, you told us a story. Let me tell you one real quick. We're here, framed for a murder and a kidnapping that we didn't commit, and immediately directed by the people that work for the facility that is trying to apprehend us. We're directed by a man who says, hey, go talk to my smuggler brother down in the slums of this place, and he'll hook you up. We go down, we talk to him. He's alone, dressed in a suit, and tells us all this information and has every answer to the exact problem that we need. Also, precariously, the solution that he's offering us, he had removed many years ago because it's dangerous. And that the chips that he's offering us also are actually used normally to track you inside this location, but he assures us that the chips that he's going to give us are not tracking chips at all. They're chips that'll do the opposite of tracking. So, as you might imagine, it's easy for us to think that you're full of, I don't know. I'm not brushed up on my space alien things. You're full of shit. But what might help us there is earlier you refused to be put under a truth detection spell, because that's obviously helpful to us. That might be the only way that we believe you or do any of this, because obviously you care for Bliss. You were her manager, as you claim. You care to have Zephyr Core, or at least the corruptive parts of it, stopped and Stormdark stopped. So here's my request. And I think this might hopefully be agreed upon by my companions, is if you can say everything you've told us so far, and only that, we won't, maybe if there's other parts of this plan you haven't told us, we'll let those go through as well. But everything you've told us so far, say it under the guise of this truth spell, and if it all rings true, then you'll see our dispositions change, maybe. But at the moment, it's very easy to believe that this is a very elaborate plot to drive us directly into the hive of the people that have been trying to get a hold of us for a long time.
You know, it's also interesting, Kaz, as you're saying all of this, there's something he didn't actually mention as a part of the plan. This is really great. I am just, holding my breath at the idea of him explaining, this next part that I'm going to ask, which is, and I turn to Fel, how the hell are we going to get out of there once we're in there? How are you going to clear our name? How are we going to get the hell off of this station? Because I got to be honest with you, Hell Saros is a lot better of a place than this mecca of entertainment. At least a guy can get a drink there and know that he's facing horrible people. You all are just the worst, fake, most obnoxious. I don't even know what to call you. But so I would love an answer to that question.
He says, if I were the Kesh I were 5 years ago, I'd say that's show business. But I'm not. I've changed, in large part because of what I've seen in the Bastion. And you're right. The people here are as fake as they come. But there is a predictability in that. It means you can trust that those people who have been through the ringer know what it's like to deal with them. And in answer to your question, which is an excellent one, and he turns to you, Sleepwell, and he flicks the decryption thing to you. And he says, from my understanding, your Sleepwell here is quite a whiz on this stuff. He knows engineering, mechanics. He points to the headless construct. He knows
Kaz
synthetic
holds
life.
up a hand and says, don't even continue. For as much information as you seem to know about us, you could have programmed these chips to be repellent or to be unhackable specifically by Sleepwell. You seem to know that he's a great hacker already. You're going to say everything you've said so far under the guise of a truth spell, or there's going to be no deal at all, and we'll walk away.
He says, I don't know that I believe you, Kaz. Where are you going to walk away to? You
I
going to
have
go back
a
to my
very
brother?
beautiful plane inside my mind that might have more answers than you.
And he kind of lifts his head. He's like, don't totally know what you mean by that, but if you want to escape into your own thoughts, you can do so. As far as walking away from a deal, I don't think that any of you are in a position to do that. But you're quite right that I do need you too. I can't just do this myself. And I can't get a group of people to do it either, because anyone else is not going to have the inside knowledge you do of these places. They're not going to know this particular group. And they're sure not going to understand what's at stake with the shadow technocracy. But I do. And that's why your friends and mine, Arisa and Abraxas, came to me as well, talked to me about this very subject. I don't blame you for not trusting me, but you don't have anywhere to walk to, except into your own mind where you can while away the hours. But in the universe out here, a universe you have already proven you're willing to fight for, we've got problems. And I'm offering you a way to clear your name, solve another one of those problems, and strike a blow against this organization that wants you dead. At the same time, I get revenge against the bastards that took Bliss from me, and I get a chance to maybe get a career going again and get some quality again back in my life instead of just smuggling and sitting on benches while chemicals swirl up around me. Now
Wait, so we're agreed then that you're going to go under the auspices of my Detect Lie Esper.
Yeah, it's a shame you're going to have to say literally all of that again.
He says, if I go under this Detect Lie Esper that you want to do, then I need to be at least sure of one thing. That when you make this, and you put me under this Detect Lie, that you don't try to gather any information other than what we've just discussed within this plan, as you just told me, Kaz. And that you'll then, if it's true, and if you're willing to go forward with it, that you'll commit to this plan. You won't bail out on me halfway through, you won't get cold feet, or you won't run back to my brother and tell him all of this so that you can get Goody Two-Shoes on your side.
He's already on our side. And Sleepwell, I was under the impression that they're never forced to answer. If they want to omit an answer, they can, right?
They can maintain silence. That's correct.
Okay.
So if you answer, it has to be the truth, but you don't have to answer. Just
And if-
understand that, if you don't answer any of the questions that you've already answered, that might be a little suspicious.
Little sus.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of
Thanks, Sleep. I wasn't gonna say.
Sorry. I'm up on the lead speak.
and he says, "I'm pure town, man." So he kind of nods. Actually, how do I want to have do this?
I was really the one.
I'm gonna have
Badgering
Kaz
him.
make a persuasion check for me.
All right.
Can we get some bonuses for all of us standing around
Yeah,
staring
I'm
menacingly?
thinking about it.
Well,
thinking about it.
Even despite all that, I'm taking a look at that know your target thing, and based on the fact that he's a Kesh as well, it says, actually, no, never mind. It's everything but persuasion. It says you have advantage on charisma deception and charisma intimidations,
Yeah, but not charisma persuasion.
but not persuasion. So never mind. I mean, maybe this is intimidate. I was
No.
okay.
No, he's not. He's not intimidated. It's not nothing against you. He's just that's not how this guy rolls.
Unintimidatable.
I mean, no, I'm sure that you could be, but I will say that I'm trying to decide if I want to give this an advantage or not. I'll give it to you at advantage, yeah.
Okay, thank
so make the persuasion at advantage.
Okie doke.
Vote him out.
Be a
and
good
everything.
time for an inspiration.
Yeah. This
Well,
would be
he's
a
already got
great time for
advantage,
an
so
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's,
All right, never mind.
otherwise I
God
would have
bless
asked for
us,
that.
I
I would have
won't
agreed with you.
shamelessly beg for inspiration.
Just in general, if you want to give us inspiration.
Just remember, we're the best group.
Okay. And yeah, so that's a 12.
So he kind of like slowly, and he kind of like his eyes narrow, and he takes his arm from the back of the bench, and he very slowly stands up, and he walks forward slowly until his hands at his sides, until he's facing you, Kaz, and of course he's looking up at you because you're taller than him. And he says, I want you to promise me that what you're going to do is exactly what you said. I want to hear it from you directly.
I promise you that my specific request is for you to just repeat everything you've told us so far since meeting you under the aura of Sleepwell's truth spell. And even if we did want to ask you other questions that you may or may not want to tell the truth on, you can still decide not to answer. So it's really it's kind of a win-win scenario for both of us if you're actually telling the truth. Trust me, I want to believe you. Everything you're saying sounds extremely unlikely great opportunities for us to get exactly where we need to go. I mean, it's actually a great pleasure to meet you, this person that's giving us the exact things that we need to break into a place that obviously would not be able to be broken into otherwise. But hey, I hope you understand my hesitation.
And he nods very slowly, and he says, all right. And he turns around,
That wasn't so hard.
and he goes back to the bench, and he sits down, and he says, you may proceed then.
Sleep well. Cracks his claws, comes up, and he gets there. It's like, all right, this is gonna hurt. Just hold still. Of course, it's not gonna hurt. He's just messing with it.
Okay.
And he casts the detect lie.
Okay.
Do we still say cast with espers? Does he
Um,
esp? What do you do?
Yeah, I would say, no,
Is that what it...
I think the term would be, to, or I guess,
Activate.
yeah, utilize, but it just feels like, I don't know. It's
It's very D&D.
It is. It is. Well, but I mean, beyond that, it also Esper is almost like you're not activating it. You're not turning a switch, right? I mean, you are sort of tapping into. There you go, tapping into your talent, right? Let's put it that way. Yeah, you manifest. Wham! You know.
So, I am summoning up Esper juiciness within me,
Okay.
and then I thrust Esper juiciness up. No, I'm gonna avoid.
Wow. Wow.
Going way
Hey,
bad,
wow.
way bad, sorry.
He stands up and
Let's go
runs
there.
the other way.
It's suddenly a very different street.
It is that is a spin-off
That's
that we do
a-
not
dark
need.
now.
Yeah, Esper
Oh
does this
yeah.
Oh boy, Adult Swim,
Hey.
here we come.
Yeah. So I just cast detect lie.
Okay, okay, you do that, and he's still on the bench.
Now, so we are going to basically ask him to repeat every single thing, and just kind
Yeah.
of like looking at the time. Is this something we can fast forward a little? Or
No,
is
we
this
have to go
something
through
we can...
every single. No, no, you're able to.
montage.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You just have these like little cuts, these like fade cuts where you just see him like blah 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 blah, and you're all looking at him,
Right.
fade cut, you know.
Cool music playing.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you do that. And when all is said and done, and he's gone through the entire story, you do not detect a lie in the story that he's told you.
You know, I'm concentrating especially on probing that implant thing, like that he wants us to get freaking implanted.
Right.
So like
And that the ones he's giving us are will have the opposite effect as normal.
Yeah, the fact that it will have the opposite effect as what the chips would normally do also does not seem to be a lie.
and
That
it
seems
was
to be the-
this was modified by Praxis himself.
Yes, that is the case.
So this isn't one of the things that we talked about before, but he doesn't have to answer. I asked him, how did Praxis know to make this for us when we didn't know we were going to end up here?
He says, because I knew, and I asked him to do it.
But he shipped them? Like, how did they even get here in time?
He says, the amazing thing about a hacker is what he can send from a distance over the power of networks. And by the way, Abraxas doing this was putting himself at risk, because he is essentially on the run also. But he said that he happens to have done a lot of modifications to his office back on Pelsaros. He also told me to tell all of you that you'll like what he's done with the place, quote unquote.
Okay. But basically, like, everything he says absolutely checks out.
Checks out.
Yeah, everything that correct. Like, based on the questions and the stories that you've told him. Now, as I said, you have not asked all these other random questions, but everything within the parameters of what was just talked about seems to be, yes, that seems to be truth.
Okay. So, before the Esper power runs out, folks, do we have anything else that we want to try to verify?
I'm not going to ask him anything else because I made a promise.
You know what? I totally did not make a promise. So I'm happy to ask pretty much everything else we really want to know, and he's welcome not to answer. But honestly, there's only one question I really have. So, Fel, did you have any involvement in setting us up? Did you set us up so that we could help you rescue Bliss?
He shakes his head. No. It was not my intention, or in fact, my operation that put you in this position. People of mine have been talking to me about you ever since you arrived on the Bastion, but especially after what you did to save Bliss, and I'll tell you, I didn't actually know what you were doing when I was trying to deal with the situation with Bliss and Merrick either. But once I knew from them and saw what you did, it doesn't do me any good except overcomplicate the situation that you ended up being on the run. Although, it does provide me a bit of leverage I might not have otherwise had. But it's not worth the extra hassle. I don't need the heat, trust me.
So
Hermes is going to turn to Sleepwell and say, "We good?"
I just need some out of character information,
Sure,
just because I'm trying to get the timeline in my head.
Yeah.
When did we discover that? Like, basically, how long ago did Albin or that guy how long ago did he knock on a door? Like, it's only been a couple of hours, right?
Well, a little more
Or
than
an
that.
hour?
A little more than that. Probably maybe 3 hours or so. Maybe something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
So the body's discovered sometime earlier than that. And
Yeah, much earlier that morning. Yeah.
that morning. So that basically means that somehow Praxis had to modify the chips between, the time that the murder happens and is discovered by Albin, and Albin somehow communicates that to his brother, and then he communicates with Praxis saying, I have these chips, can you modify them? Praxis makes the change and comes back.
Well, with one exception though, the media found out that Merrick had been killed and that Bliss was missing, but the body, was found, they say, when it was found, but Bliss actually went missing a little earlier, and the media then found, like, it got leaked to the media, the fact that Bliss was missing. So
but even that would still be just a matter of hours, not days, right?
Right. Although, but maybe a number of hours. But yes, that's true. Not days. Correct.
Right. And so, like, basically what I do is out loud, I sort of like piece all of this together,
Right.
Like to the group. And I'm just sort of like, this is an extremely tight timetable. How could you have known all of this and gotten even in contact with Praxis and gotten him to do not easy hacking work so quickly?
And he says, I don't think you realize how much of importance your group is, or how much your group is often being observed, and not just by the bad guys. There are also people watching your backs, as I heard you say.
Oh no, every time we meet somebody, they know our full names, they start talking to us about our past history, like every single time.
You do have a tendency to live much of your lives out loud, Sleepwell. You may have noticed.
Yeah, I mean, we get that, but what I don't get is how you knew to make all of this happen in a matter of hours. It just doesn't seem likely that there's enough time for it to happen.
Because some of them, including Abraxas himself, have been watching you for a while. They've been observing what's happening. Remember, they're trying to take care of Stormdark. They know that you were looking for the same thing. It was Arisa who sent you in the first place to get you eventually to the place where you'd find yourself here at the Bastion.
But that's irrelevant right now. I'm trying to figure out how you contacted Abraxas and said, I have these chips, you can't actually touch them or hold them, you can't actually do any hardwiring, but I want you to soft change them and hack them into the thing that we need from a distance and do it instantly, because they're going to show up here any minute now.
He says, I told you I was a smuggler, and I told you I've been doing that for a while, although not as long as when I was a manager. And I told you that as a smuggler, I've had sometimes to do things that are outside the normal law and normal procedure. And that means that I've been in contact with people like Abraxas for a long time. Abraxas and I have played out scenarios, situations for some time. Both of us know the risk that Stormdark poses, and so we've gathered as much information as we can and about places that we were going to need to go as we could. So I knew and he knew about these chips for a long time. The modifications of them were done some time ago. The extra modifications, at least the ones that make it possible for you specifically, and he kind of points at all of you, to be the ones that are going to be concealed here, that is a much later creation. And that is because Abraxas is really good as being a hacker, but also because he knows all of you. He knows the way you work, and he has access to some of your identity protocols. Therefore, it was somewhat easy for him to figure out a way to make a decryption chip that would get your identities cleared on the Bastion. But this didn't just start in the last 12 hours, Sleepwell. Abraxas and I have been working together for a long time, and we knew Stormdark was going to have to be dealt with for a long time. We've been gaming out these scenarios for a long time.
It's funny, though. He just never mentioned you, never mentioned Stormdark. Plenty of opportunity. We've been dealing with the shadow technocracy for a while now.
I hate to break it to you. There's a lot of other things he hasn't told you either, and that I haven't told you, for that matter. Everyone has their secrets.
We'll have time to stab our skepticism into our friend here once we're able to do so at a bar, maybe over some energy drinks.
I like that.
He smiles.
I mean, energy drinks for me, but
makes sense to me.
I'm given that everything you said was true,
And all
whether-
this is true also, right? I didn't get any like fluctuation here.
Right. Including when he was saying stuff like, like he hasn't told you all his secrets and neither did Abraxas. Yeah, that all seems right.
Okay.
So Kaz says, under the pretense that this is all true, and then turns to sleep. Well, no matter how implausible it may seem, I think we are running out of time. Speaking of quick timetables, I'm ready to go with whatever this chip install hacking dive undercover Zephyr Core 79th floor thing is.
That is my next question. As a trained doctor, I am a little concerned about where we might perform this outpatient surgery that's going to put an implant in our body.
That you don't have to worry about. This is very much like I wonder if anyone will get this reference, subcutaneous transponder. Does anyone know the reference?
No.
Maybe?
Cat does, though. Apparently. Oh.
Okay. It's actually it's an OG Star Trek reference, but and the way he explains it is that it's basically a hypo that injects this chip below the level of the skin. Now, when you first looked at it, as I mentioned, this thing is like decent size. You're like,
Right.
oh. But actually, the way that the hypo itself essentially what it does
that
is
big.
yeah, exactly. It's that big a hypo. Yeah. This is the that'll be the vaccine too. No.
Take a cookie cutter.
So no. What it's actually designed to do is the thing. Essentially, it pumps, and it's pretty impressive technology. Sleepwell, separate from everything else. It essentially liquefies and immediately regenerates the form on the other side of the skin. So it goes through essentially one pore of the skin and then immediately reforms underneath the skin. And so it'll feel slightly weird at first, but it's not supposed to create any pain or anything like that. And it is essentially undetectable unless someone starts cutting around your wrist, which hopefully, you can all avoid that happening. But otherwise, it's essentially undetectable. And what Fel tells you, what Amrik tells you, is that after this is done, he will reverse the procedure and will essentially draw it out so it's made liquid on the other side of the skin, pulled back into another hypo, and then emerges on the other side as this kind of solid form that you see. And apparently the way that it's able to do this is that blue light that I mentioned that you see on the face of the chip is itself Esper energy that is flowing through this. And so he has this protocol that allows him to inject this chip without really it ever piercing the skin, other through just that one pore of the skin that allows you to do this.
I
Thank you,
like
Shedid.
chin toward his scar, and I'm like, well, why didn't you do that for your?
Because I was on the run and I didn't have access to a hypo. I don't recommend cutting these out yourself. And you can see as you look Sleepwell that it's like a jagged, it's a fairly jagged scar that he's obviously like maybe even like covered with a little bit of makeup or something, like something on the top of it, but yeah. So
Okay, well, he's telling the truth.
Time is of the essence.
yep. And at this point I would say
ready.
probably your zone of truth is just about up.
Zone of tooth. That's
So
a
your
whole
zone
other
of
spell.
tooth. That is another thing, which is also. Okay. So, assuming once he's explained that, are you all on board with
Oz
this?
is the first, among the first, to put his wrist out and
Okay.
say,
Alright.
get it over with.
And I'm just
Wait,
going to be
wait.
medically monitoring the injection.
Okay, go
I
ahead,
have a question about
Sure.
I have a question about this with cause. How does an
Oh.
organic or liquid substance, this item, get injected into a suit? I'd like a medical explanation here. Can we
Poreless
get somebody
suit.
to?
I would imagine my suit is not all like super hard metal. A lot of it is. I can actually look at. There's a certain material. It's described as being a sorium suit, and sorium is renowned for channeling Esper.
Yep.
So.
So
I
it
imagine
interacts
that-
with the Esper on the chip was sort of
Yeah.
my head canon. I wondered about this too, and then I thought about the fact that we decided that you can get healed by normal
Yeah,
stuff, and I
exactly.
figured it's got to be on the same principle. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, even in the concept art of the Bellari, there are some parts of the suit that look like a softer, like mesh material that you almost imagine might be like skin-like to the touch.
Right.
So yeah, I think it would work out.
Yeah, more than like
Okay.
a suit of armor, I think. So
Yeah.
so he does this, and in each of these cases, when each of you get this chip in, there's this kind of slight moment of like, whoa, like you kind of look and it feels like I got a coin underneath my skin, but then, you know, like that feeling immediately passes, and if anything, it feels like it sinks slightly into the skin, just slightly, like so it just kind of disappears slightly from view. If you put your hand over and kind of feel around and push a little bit, you could feel it below the skin, but it's not obviously visible, like there's a big honking chip like in the middle of your wrist. You wouldn't be able to see that. And they seem sleep well from what you can tell. Kaz goes through this with no difficulty. I assume who would be up next after Sleepwell? Like Petra,
Or after
Aramis,
me.
like
Aramis would go next.
after Kaz. I'm sorry. So Aramis,
Okay.
same thing. Aramis, there's no, there's nothing you notice Sleepwell about Aramis that changes other than the fact that he's got this chip in. If Petra goes next, I don't know, does she?
I'll
Okay.
go next.
So
Sure.
yeah, it's same thing. Like nothing different there. And then the last one would be you, Sleepwell.
Okay.
So when that's done to you, same thing. Nothing seems to be different about that. You sort of, kind of looks as he puts the last one in, and then says, and nods and says, "All right. So, the die is cast, as they say. I'm glad we were able to work this out, and I'm going to make things a little bit easier, in that I'm going to find something that's going to bring you directly to where you need to go. I'm glad that we've settled this peacefully, and I'm glad that we were willing to work this out together. Be aware, as you go off and do what you're doing, that I will try to do everything I can to keep people off your scent, and I've got my people ready for it." And he looks around, and then he holds up his arm, and on his wrist where the scar was, you can see there's this little looks almost like a watch, or like in our time a wristwatch would be, that materializes on his skin as if there had been like a little cloaking field or something like that over it, and he presses it, and there's a moment where I want everyone to make a perception check for me, please, as that happens.
I somehow lost my roll 20. I'm sorry, one second.
This is for Aramis.
17? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yep.
It's
This is-
only 17. Okay.
Jeez.
Okay,
bones.
Petra with a 21. Wow.
Dude,
And Kaz with a 22. And only Sleepwell, who I think is more occupied maybe with doing all the medical stuff, maybe doesn't notice. But I love narratively that everyone else feels this, because all the other three of you, Petra and Kaz and Aramis, are immediately aware of a presence. And as you look around, you can see that there are glittering from alleys and from the windows of one of these dilapidated buildings, and from the shadows not far from where you were, there is the glint of eyes and what looks like flashing metal. And he nods, she sort of nods once, and then they all disappear back into the shadows. This very
Told you guys.
Winston John Wick moment, right? And
having Kanasi flashbacks.
and he says,
Crap.
I'm glad. And these ones here, they'll be watching you and watching your back. Right down this way, and he points ahead. Straight ahead, you'll find what you need. In fact, I think it's coming up now. And you hear this low hum, like, and then coming along the sort of the permacrete, which is damp and sort of above these puddles, is this slightly humming, what looks almost like one of the taxis that we talked about that like fly around the bastion to different places, except this one has clearly been modified. It kind of looks, frankly, not particularly impressive. Like it looks sort of like all the joints of the doors don't fit quite right, and it looks a little bit, and it sort of comes up slightly unsteadily and comes to a stop in front of you all. And he and Amrik kind of waits and folds his arms, and then the doors open up, and he says, "This is going to bring you right to the bastion. Right to the first floor of Altai Media. Like I said, you'll be able to get in past all the automated defenses of that place with no problem. But it'll be your job to figure out how to get past the organics in there, how to explain to them that you need to use the elevator. There is an alternative, you should know. There are multiple ways to get into that building. One is through the front door. A second is through 2 side doors that are not technically permissible for other people to enter, but if you want to use your powers of not being spotted," he pauses and says, "I don't know how many times you've used those in your adventures in the Silrain Arc, but if you have them, you could try to use those. Or you could try to figure out a way to fly up, I suppose, all the way to the 80th floor and break in directly. That approach, though, is dangerous, because up there, security, organic security, is going to be looking for anyone trying to infiltrate, at least out through those windows. The side doors are another possibility, but if you're going to go in that way, no one's going to expect to see you. If you come in that way, you won't be able to talk your way out of it. So that's a pure don't get seen type of approach. Or there's the one that all of you seem to be so good at, talking your way out of problems. That's the way that would lead you into the front door of the building. Get to that elevator that brings you up to the 80th floor, and from there, you know what to do."
All right.
And so he kind of like gestures to the open taxi. And the thing about the taxi, by the way, no driver.
I have one question out of character,
Sure.
real quick.
Sure.
What was the name of the kid from the last session, the teenager?
Idrin Hexstar was his name.
As we're getting into this taxi, I'm going to look back to Fel and say, "Do you know a kid by the name of Idrin?"
And he sort of nods. I might have heard of him. Why?
He could use your help.
Really? How so?
He helped us. We owe him a favor. He could use your help. Just square it with him and everything will be okay with me on this situation.
He nods slowly and he says, "For you, Aramis, for you, Petra, for you, Sleepwell, for you, Kaz, anything." He says, "Be careful up there. You're going to try to clear some names. You're also trying to save the galaxy. Good luck." And so the last sight as the doors like close, and cutscene as the taxi sort of turns in place to head off to the Altai Media headquarters and the headquarters of the Zephyr Corporation on the Bastion. You see Fel Amrik kind of watching, and then as this taxi begins to move, you see it begin to shimmer and then vanish from sight. Something which no taxi on the Bastion is capable of doing.
The
Fel
hyper
Amrik
taxi.
smiles, and Fel Amrik smiles and says, apparently to nobody, "All right, they're on their way. I hope you know what you're doing, Abraxas. I hope they're as good as you say they are." And that's where we will bring our session to a close for this evening. I would go longer normally, but Carlos had a hard out at midnight, so I needed to get us on out of
I
there.
think that's a good spot to end.
It seemed like a good spot to end anyway. Oh man,
It's a
I
good
loved
end.
playing with you guys on this one. Good stuff. That was great. I actually, straight up, I know that Kat and I have chatted before about, someday doing some kind of fiction in the Esper universe, but man, I would love to see some kind of just mini movie of just that sequence right there. That was all awesome. Like oh man, it turned my crank. I loved it. So I will start as per usual over on the right side with Zach. Good stuff, man. I think Kaz really had a really good RP with this, because Kaz was able to sort of have the kind of steadying Because Sleepwell was obviously playing up the kind of like, I get to be a pain, you know, and this is what I like to do and all that stuff, and played that, of course, beautifully as always. But I think that you really were able to bring kind of this steadying influence of like, here's how this is going to work. I'm going to leave and you're going to let it happen, you know, type of thing, whatever. Like I'm going to, you know, this sort of thing. And I think that worked out nicely. How did you feel about today's little set of encounters, and where will the folks find you next?
He's an interesting guy, that Fel Omric.
Yeah, he is.
And isn't it interesting that his name is Fel Omric, and then his real name is Omric Heil? So he fell down there, maybe. But
That's true.
Regardless, I enjoyed this episode and am mostly, aside from the great RP that we had, anxious to see what happens as we infiltrate you mentioned the home of Laris Valiant himself. Will we get to see his childhood bedroom and his
his baseball card collection,
of Selexi Sunfire, and all these random things?
His Stranger Things posters. What is he gonna have there?
When we have that final boss fight, we'll be like, have you been missing this? And we pull up the little, you know, stuffed animal he used to cuddle when he was 6. Yeah, I didn't think so. Rips the head off of it. Yeah, I'm ready. So that was a great session. Can't wait for next month. And yeah, let's do it up. Let's go on that 79th floor. Heck yeah.
It's gonna be good stuff. I'm actually really also looking forward to what I think will happen at the beginning of the session, was just all of you discussing how you want to get in. Like, are you going to do the stealth mode by the side? Are you going to do the direct approach by kind of going in and talk your way through it? Or are you going to be like, let's just go up to the 80th floor and, you know, break in through all security systems? Yeah, I mean, like, who knows? But I'm looking forward to that. Always a pleasure, Zach. And you will see Zach, of course, next month on Esper Genesis and the Vocalist and other channels and other stuff. So thank you as always, Zach. Great pleasure. Also a great pleasure to have Carlos with us, who, as always, does a beautiful job with Sleepwell. And I at some point, Kat mentioned in chat that, like, what is this strange relationship with Aramis and Sleepwell? And it was kind of cracking me up, where Aramis is like, you do this, big guy. And then it made a lot more sense in the huddle when he was like, well, yeah, and then I figured you were the guy to act like a jerk to him. And the fact that Sleepwell's like, thank you, you know, it's like really, you know, approves of the compliment. It was a lot of fun. How did you feel about today, Carlos, and where will the fun folks see you next?
Yeah, so it was fun to, like, not just simply be at the sort of like whim of somebody who's like throwing answers at you, and,
right.
and to like sort of like hold a hard line on this, like, this sounds like so pat, you know, like we really got to verify this, you know, and the fact that, you know, like, I have a tool that lets us absolutely verify things like that seems like really good, and his reluctance made, like, all of that made sense and everything, and so it was very enjoyable, that back and forth, and that bantering, and the kinds of forensic, you know, trying to, but what about this, and you know, like that kind of back and forth. So tons of fun. I basically every weekend in October I'm gonna have like a different event that I'll be doing, so maybe like the first time we play I'll announce the next one or whatever, but the one that I'm really excited about is I'm going to be the guest of honor for the Ozark Book Festival, and so that's in October, and I'll announce it, you know, before the next session.
Nice.
Good stuff. Thank you, Carlos, so much. Always a pleasure. And also always a pleasure to have Kat with us, although I know, Kat, you had to come on a little bit later because you were doing other stuff too. So there wasn't as much that we were able to get from Petra, but you were able to pick up some of it, I think, and you were able to get the second part of what we were talking about. And I think Petra, it depends on how you decide to get into the building, will have a lot to do with how Petra manages, I think, this next session. So,
well, you know, I'll probably suggest disguising ourselves as cleaners, because that's my go-to idea.
Cleaners, not cheese vendors. Like, you know, I have the finest cheese for all of you.
It's not going to be all cheese platters next time.
All cheese platters.
How did you feel about today? Where would the lovely folks find you?
Oh, I had a ton of fun as always, and I am sorry to have missed out on the first part. Where can you find me? I was taping a panel for Ring of Fire Con, which comes up next week. Tomorrow I'll be at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association teaching a class. I will also be at Common Fluence next weekend as well, because the wonders of the pandemic is that you can be in multiple places in one weekend.
Yep, it's true.
And of course, you will see me all over the place shouting about this new book, And the Last Trump Shall Sound. And I do want to say, while I'm saying that, if you are American, please make sure that you're registered to vote.
Yes, we
as
even
you
have a
do so.
command in chat called Vote Now, and that right there is the link to go to vote.org with what I have to say is a good emote from Twitch. All in vote is a good Twitch emote. So go
Awesome.
do that as you can register to vote. Absolutely, yes. Sorry, Kat.
Do
but
it
yeah,
for Petra.
do it for Petra. And is there a link, by the way, Kat, to the place that you'd like us to get these books from? Like, assuming it's
I would
not...
like you to go to your local bookstore.
Okay. right.
You can order it from your local bookstore. They should be able to get it. They should have no problem, and you should be already ordering as much as you can from them constantly.
Right.
Like streams of books.
Streams of
on a
books,
daily
that's right.
basis.
Same thing, by the way, for gaming stores. Again, I'll put in a pop for our sponsor,
comic
Alligator
stores.
Alley Entertainment. That store is also sending out stuff, so you can order from Alligator Alley directly. And why not do that as opposed to going to, say, a certain thing that might actually own Twitch that rhymes with Blamazon. So why not do that here?
Beautiful book. Look at how fabulous that is.
That's right.
So, and I just put the link for bookshop.org, which will help
good.
you buy, whatever you want from a local bookshop. If you don't have one, like if you're in rural Maine and don't have a
nice.
local one,
There you go, Rudno.
then bookshop.org is a good solution.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. So you got 4 streams going right now. That's a good one though, Rudnell. Yeah, bookshop.org will make that possible. So awesome. But thank you very much, Kat, and I look forward to seeing how Petra handles things next month and all the virtual cons that you're on. So good luck, continued good luck with the launch of the new book. And last but certainly not least, Johnny, although we did not have your video, we did have your voice and thus your presence with us today, which was cool. And yeah, Aramis was, I was really cracking up at Aramis's sort of, the development of Aramis and Sleepwell's relationship, as I've said before, has really been great, and it's been a lot of fun to sort of watch that play out over time. And it was also fun to see Aramis, who is... I like the fact that people, not just you, but that you in particular, it seemed to me, were kind of like, okay, so this doesn't make sense as a conspiracy theory because of the following factors of other people that we know. So there was also there was a dialing up of conspiracy, which was very logical, but there was also a dialing down at times of conspiracy from Aramis, which I thought was interesting. And it led, as I said, to this great, Winston in the Continental John Wick type moment a little bit with Fel, which I was really digging. So how did you feel about today? Where will the lovely folks see you next?
Today was a lot of fun, actually, and I will give props to both Zach and Carlos for the awesome RP, and to you, Greg, because I agree with you. I would love to watch. It doesn't have to be a movie. Let's just have one scene.
Just a scene,
like a
yeah.
YouTube video, sort of like just the scene of that. Just kind of the setup and everything else, and the mood and the music, and right. So completely about that. Aramis is nothing if not pragmatic and pretty much a fatalist or realist for the most part. So conspiracy theories aside, the obvious choice is always that it's the worst case scenario, and we'll just deal with that how we deal with it. But there's no problem. There's no reason to get all excited about it. Let's just assume that it's a trap, and let's walk in like it's a trap and survive it like it's a trap. So that's Aramis's position. But yeah, I had a lot of fun today, and the plot development today was actually pretty entertaining, especially when the threads are starting to get tied together for a lot of the story. So
yep.
You'll first and foremost find me here next month doing this again with all you lovely folks. Beginning of October is no official date yet, but beginning of October is I will be returning to my channel.
Yay.
I will be doing mostly video game streaming for the most part for the foreseeable future, but good things are in the works, and so just start looking for that, and for me starting in probably the first full week of October.
Sounds good. Good stuff. Good stuff, John. And you can find that, of course, at Video Store Cowboy on Twitch. And yeah, great work again from the team. And I've really been enjoying, playing out and writing this this space opera story adventure with all of you. So such a pleasure to do it, and I'm looking forward to next month when we get to do it again. So
Thank you so much, Greg. We
Thank
appreciate you as well.
Greg.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
Greg.
Always a
Been
pleasure.
awesome.
Chat, can we get some love for the amazing players? And I will see all of you wonderful folks, Johnny and Kat and Carlos and Zach next month.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chad.
everyone.
Guys.
Thank you guys.
Good night.
All
Good night.
And that is going to do it for that. So yeah, I love, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. There's just something so atmospheric, and I keep bringing up John Wick, but there's that sequence at the end of the second movie where John Wick goes into the park and he's talking to Winston, and there's all these people walking around and whatever. I'm just going to spoil this one part of it, okay? And I've actually never seen all of the first movie or the last movie, oddly. But there's that sequence where he's talking to him, and then like at one point Winston says something, and Winston just says something, and like everybody in the park stops moving, and you realize that like all of them are apparently tied into whatever the hell Winston just said. And like that, and like and John Wick's comments, which is just like, tell them, I'll kill them, I'll kill all of them. Like it's so stylish. Like, I don't know, I love that kind of secrecy, spy, vaguely stuff. I really dig that stuff. So anyway, I was really having a lot of fun seeing that play out, and you will get a chance then, chat, to see some infiltrations happening in short order, and how the party decides to do this, if they're going to go direct approach, side approach, how they're going to do this. That is all stuff which is going to be interesting to see. So, but we've got more awesome role play that is set up for you coming up this weekend. Again, later on today, Saturday at 7 p.m. Yeah, I'm supposed to be impressed. Yes. Yeah, that's true. I'm supposed to be, but that's true. Yes. But at 7 p.m. Eastern, you are going to see the next D&D INB Curse of Strahd. And if you have not been following along with that campaign, boy, is that thing, turned all the way up to 11. They are on the run with a 250-pound dragon skull while Strahd himself pursues them. They've got to get out of the castle. They've got to get it back to Argynvostholt. And then they've got to strike their blow. So things are accelerating to a conclusion. I think we are rapidly moving towards the conclusion of that campaign, which has been an amazing campaign, a really pleasure for me to run, and you're going to get a chance to see more of it tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern with more Curse of Strahd. So that is happening tomorrow. Then on Sunday, we have the Rising Tides, who is going to be bringing you the next Speculate Twitch event of Blades in the Dark as the case of the Cindered Seal rolls on, and we get even more awesome and fun role play, and from people that are totally made of meat and not at all, not human in any respect, but totally that way, the way that things are. So that's going to be happening on Sunday at 7 p.m. Then Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we've got more Emberwind with the Ember crew. And then Tuesday, I will be back at noon Eastern with the Chat Chosen Game of the Month, which was Spiritfarer for this month. And then at 4 p.m. Eastern, I'll be over at GOG with D&D with GOG, we just did that, with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Blood and Wine, as we move into, this is either be the last session this Tuesday, or it'll be the next to the last session of that game, and then I'm going to be moving on to Vaporum Lockdown, which is going to be the next series I play after that. So that's what we're looking at. So you will have a chance. Basically, you'll have 3 more chances for these inspirations. Curse of Strahd is one. The second one will be the Speculate Twitch Blades in the Dark game, and then the third one will be Emberwind. Those will be your 3 remaining ones of the month to use your inspiration. So if you have them, be aware and be sort of strategizing about which shows you're going to see and where you're going to use them, because they reset at the beginning of the next month, so be thinking a little bit about that. Always a pleasure to have everyone here. I hope you folks enjoyed it as much as I did. Who are you inspiring, Lone Wolf? You can't just have a floating inspiration. As much as I'm inspired by your presence, but I don't need an inspiration. You were checking? That's all right. I'll give it back to you. It's the way you check it out is you go inspiration have. So hold on a second here. So I've now added you back. So if you were to say !inspiration space -have, that will tell you if you have one, like Shadow Mage just did. Yeah. Oh, and ironically, check this out. Apparently, I don't have the option to use inspiration on my own channel. Here's the funny thing. Yes, I do. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, so that's the deal with that. But yeah, so I hope you folks enjoyed that. We are going to be doing a raid today, but before I send you off on the raid, I do want to remind everyone about ways to support us here on the channel. Please follow us if you haven't done so already. Check the YouTube with !ArvTube, the Discord with !ArvCord, the Twitter with !ArvTweets. You can find all of that on our website, arvaneleron.com. On the financial side, !ArvShop. You can always check, which gives you merchandise for both the Infinity and Beyond crew and for the Adventures of Middle-earth crew, and soon Esper Genesis stuff as well. Arv Treon is that Patreon sitting right there. 22 patrons to 25 per month. That's really the financial backbone of the channel. So any support that people can give would really help here. You have no power here. Anything you can do there would be really helpful, and you can also get stuff, both cool stuff for you and cool stuff for the channel as that number continues to go upwards. So thank you in advance for supporting me there. And also supporting the channel by subbing to the channel, which will allow you to add on to a couple of people. Today, Lone Wolf actually gave a gift sub to Ibrahim. Thank you again for that, Lone Wolf. And we also had a resub from Dragon Spear. Thank you, Dragon Spear. So again, those resubs and those subs to others really do make a difference also, and allows you to, again, also inspire the players and also get those custom sub badges and emotes to use everywhere across Twitch. So thank you for doing that if you have, and if you haven't, please consider doing so. Otherwise, on the publishing side, Icarus and Jelinek will get you details about my graphic novels, Icarus and Jelinek from Athos Arts, coming out in retail form on November 10th. So we do have a couple of copies of those, the pre-retail Kickstarter versions left, so please jump on board with that. Library is Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, my 5e adventure and source book from the aforementioned Alligator Alley Entertainment. Print editions are so close, I can taste it. I don't want to taste a book, but I can feel it and, open it and look through it and all that stuff. Because the same people that did this know how to make a real book. So I am super psyched to see the print version. But in the meantime, you can check this out by looking at the Drive-Thru RPG version, which is a digital version and which is a silver seller with Library. Grayshade KS is my Grayshade Kickstarter. February 2nd, 2021 is the launch date for that. That's going to be so awesome, and I cannot wait, and I'm going to be talking that up a storm when we cross into the new year, because it's going to be really cool when that happens. And last but certainly not least, of course, BLM and Vote Now. BLM, Black Lives Matter, because that is the case regardless of voting or not voting. Black Lives Matter, and it is important that we continue to affirm that in every way we can. That's what that resource link is all about, so please go do that. Vote Now is important because that vote.org will show you where you can register to vote in the United States. You need to do this now. You need to have a plan to vote early now. If you can vote in person and vote early safely, do it. If you cannot do so safely, then obviously vote by mail, but have a way to do that now. Don't wait until a week beforehand and go, oh wait, now I have to think about it. Now is the time. There has never been a more fraught time, I think, within our lifetime, certainly. But even within the last 50 to 60 years, there has never been a more fraught time for American democracy. And we need to be registered to vote and make that vote happen, because this is it. This is it, folks. The chips are all in the middle of the table. We have got to get that vote in. And I feel confident. I think I see many signs that we are moving in the direction we need to, but we need to make sure that we deliver. And in particular, it is important for the younger demographic, for those who are considered the ones, many of my students, right? The people that I deal with all the time, the ones who historically don't vote enough, don't get out enough. Your voices must be heard. We need you. We're all here too. All of us Generation Xers, all of the leftover baby boomers that are still around. There's a couple of people from the earlier generations too. All of those from Generation Z, all the millennials, the millennials and all that stuff. We need them too, but we need also the younger millennials, the Generation Zs. We need those folks also, because only together are we going to be able to make this work. So let's make it happen. And voting is free, not voting is costly. Exactly right, Rising Tide. So let's make that happen, and you know what to do. Let your voice be heard, vote, organize, and get other people to vote too. If you have friends or family that are like, I don't know, Make it possible for them to vote. Make it easy. Drive them to early vote. Help them fill out their mail-in ballot. I don't mean fill it out for them. That's wrong. I mean, show them like the envelopes they have to put it in and all that kind of stuff, right? If you live in Pennsylvania, you have to put it in an envelope and then put it in another envelope so as to make it because of the security protocols. And if you don't do that, the ballot could theoretically not be counted. We have to avoid all of that. No controversies, none of that. We need to just get the vote out in the hundreds of millions. That's what's got to happen. So, what's this now? Oh, try it now. Oh boy. I still don't have the option. But anyway, yes. So get out and vote. It's really that important. Otherwise, yeah, exactly. Lame is right. We are going to do a raid today, and raids are simple. If you are not a sub, you're going to do this. The Arvanauts have landed, followed by Twitch raid, lowercase Twitch, uppercase R, lowercase AID. If you are a sub, you're going to do this, which is the Arvanauts have landed, and then you've got Arvany hype in there, Twitch raid again, and Arvany roar. And you can also throw in some Arvany smugs, Arvany loves, Arvany whats, Arvany witches, Arvany woes. All of those are possible to throw in there as well when you are brought over auto-magically to the person that we are going to raid. And just taking a quick look at what we've got here. Oh, I think I see someone that's a good candidate. Let me take a look here. Yeah, okay. I know then who we are going to raid today. So stick around and we will be able to do it. Now do it. Yeah, I know. It is kind of strange. I think because millennials, everyone was obsessed with talking about them one way or the other, while Generation X just sits in the background being like, as usual, no one remembers us. Okay, so let's see. Inspiration. Infinity inspirations. I have the power. Do you know how inspirations came into being? I have the Infinity Gauntlet. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Wait, what? You are the broadcaster. You have inspired a low. Wait. I love it, Shadowed. I love it. It's the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much, man. So everybody stick around, and then you'll be able to do that raid, and I'll see you Saturday night for Curse of Strahd. I want to thank the amazing mods, Rudinel, Dragon Spear, Rock God, and Shadowed Mage, best in the business. So good to have everyone here. Thank you to my subscribers as well, Rudinel, Dragon Spear, Rock God, Shadowed Mage, Lone Wolf, Mrs. Dunsel, The Rising Tides, and Trishy Metz. And thank you again, Lone Wolf, for giving the gift sub to Ibrahim. Thank you to my viewers. Thank you to Binky. Thank you to Cat Rambo, Commander Root, Coven Guy, who should, for some reason, this should be in the mod list and isn't, but Coven's a mod and is awesome. Divinorium, good to see you again, Div, by the way. Eye Shield, Gigafrost, Gitgok, Josiah Firesnake, what's up? Lurks, Rake Remistino, Skrrr, who was a bot that we just destroyed, U Christensen, VNK, and Virgo Praz. And special thanks as well, as always, to my players, to Johnny, to Kat, to Carlos, and to Zach, and of course to Alligator Alley Entertainment for sponsoring it. We really appreciate you, all of them. Otherwise, that's it. Yeah, you got to ban someone. It was good stuff. That's it. I'm excited about it, and I'm going to head on off now, but stick around for the raid, and I'll see you folks for Curse of Strahd tomorrow, when you'll see more inspiration. Like, for example, with that, I'll say, good night, chat. Be good to each other. Pleasant dreams. And thank you for the sub, Commander Dunsel. Thank you. And now, pleasant dreams.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Heart, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common. The crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw sorin, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.